Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is story about what if Naruto became king part 1. Before I start, please do support for more amazing content and comments for part 2. Do consider to subscribe my channel and share my video to your friends and check out the description as well. Let's start the video. Standing atop the Hokage rock with a gentle smile gracing his aging features, Naruto Uzumaki stared down upon the village of Konoha with both pride and joy. The village he had come to love with all his might continued to thrive to this day. Lessons taught by his generation remained engraved in the minds of the next generation. Life had been good to him. Through the twists and turns, Naruto could say his life was a good one. Accomplishing his dream and appointed as Nandame Hokage, Naruto had lived life with his beloved wife and 2 children. Guiding the village till he appointed his successor, Naruto had grown old alongside Hinata with his smile never dropping. Losing her had been tough, but bearable. Living to a ripe age, Naruto had finally felt the effects of age catch up to him. Trekking up the Hokage rock for the final time, Naruto sat on top of his father's engraved head as the Uzumaki gazed at his home. The morning sun was slowly rising above the darkened, casting its warm embrace at the sleeping land and all of its what if Naruto became king inhabitants. It was there, Naruto had taken his final breath. Lying gently on the head of the yondaime, Naruto Uzumaki had died peacefully with a hopeful smile remaining on his aged visage. On that day, the cries of anguish would be heard all over the elemental nations. Naruto Uzumaki had died that day. The man who had brought peace to the elemental nations after 4 bloody wars. Even though he was gone, his teachings would forever be engraved into history. The shinobi world had lost a hero, but had gained a legend. For Naruto, it had been finally time. Time for his long-due reunion with his precious people. The feeling of death was strange to say the least. The small agonizing pain that had been felt ceased to exist moments later. The feeling was comparable to getting a shot. The needle would cause some pain, but it all ended seconds later. Though dying was not as terrifying. God knows how much he hated needles. And like that, he was gone. No longer among the living, Naruto had expected to have been sent straight to the Pure Lands where his beloved friends and family would be. Instead, Naruto had been given something much less appealing. His immediate senses were of pain. Prickling pain situated directly on his head. Unconsciously moving his hand towards the area of pain, Naruto had began rubbing it in an attempt to quell the pain. Somehow, the method had worked. Resolving the pain, Naruto's eyes opened and the piercing light of day forced him to immediately shut his eyes again in order to cope with the sudden brightness. Releasing a groan, Naruto forced his body to sit before opening his eyes once again. Adjusted Tati light, Naruto released a drowsy yawn and pushed himself off of the soft bed he had been resting on. That was when a sudden thought of realization had struck him. He was dead. Dead men could not move their bodies. Blood running cold, Naruto quickly scanned his surroundings and found little details that resembled the room he had resided in before his supposed death. The room was far too lavish looking to have been his simple room. Eyes wide with a mixture of fear and confusion, Naruto ran straight for the door and yanked it open. Catching sight of the boyish arms he had used to open the door had only added to his confusion. Running through the highly decorated hallways filled with doors and paintings, Naruto had ran straight into another individual. Grunting in pain, Naruto's eyes closed and his body went slack as it fell onto the victim of his unfocused running. For a few seconds, Naruto laid on top of the person he had fallen on. Seconds later, he was brought back onto his feet and the apologies had came flooding in. Naruto looked at the woman he had ran into with a puzzled expression. The pain felt by the crash had subsided moments ago, and the apologetic woman garbed in a maid's uniform became worrying over him like he was some sort of lord. Lord Naruto, please forgive me. Scratch that, she did think he was a lord. Blinking away the confusion, Naruto had reached for the woman and brought her up from the bow she had forced herself into. The look of shock adorning the maid's expression had said it all. It was my fault, no need to say sorry. Naruto said with a bright smile. Oh, of course, Lord Naruto. Thinking over his situation, Naruto decided to ask the question he had been determined to find out. Maid-san, do you know where I am? The small smile the maid had once wore vanished and her expression adopted a mixture of worry and fear. Kneeling down before Naruto, another indication of his change in his body, and placed her hand against his forehead, checking for any signs of disease. The frantic pampering began again as the maid drew attention from the other passing servants. Soon enough, a circle of maids had formed around Naruto, all of them attempting to measure his heat of whatever they were doing. Minutes later, the small army of maids began ushering him away from the halls into another location unknown to Naruto. Struggling was useless. The servants did not allow him to squirm away from their surprisingly strong grips. Ushered away, Naruto was barely able to register everything before a man dressed in a white coat, obviously a doctor of some sort, began inspecting him with his array of tools. Lord Naruto seems to be fine, but on matters revolving around the mind one cannot be too sure, the doctor mused with a thoughtful expression. Lord Naruto, what is the last thing you remember? Well, Naruto's sentence ended there. Cutting off his words, a woman came bounding into the room. Dressed in clothing fitting for the nobility, The crimson red hair cascading down her back was what really caught Naruto's attention. Tender blue eyes were cast down on Naruto as the woman who looked unnaturally like the Uzumaki's deceased mother quickly ran to his side. Crushing him in a hug, Naruto grunted as he cut off the stream of questions flowing through his mind. Everything about this situation was just so confusing. Not only could he not feel his chakra, but to make things worse, he was in the body of a child. Nothing made sense. One minute he was laying on the Hokage rock dying, and the next, he was in some rich kid's room with an army of servants tending to his every needs. "Oh, darling, are you okay?" "I came as soon as I heard," the woman asked frantically. "Lady Astaroth, I can assure you the young lord is in perfect health," the doctor interrupted as he stopped the woman's panic-stricken search of the boy. "The only issue is that he remembers little of himself." "Is he going to be okay, doctor? Is my baby boy going to be okay?" "That is hard to say, Lady Astaroth. The only possible explanation for Lord Naruto's lack of remembrance would be amnesia. But that is highly unlikely, as Lord Naruto has not been in any issues that could have caused the amnesia. It could possibly be a coping method his brain is utilizing to drown out some unwanted memories the Lord may have." Naruto had simply been standing there, captured in a tight hug, as his eyes remained on the woman who represented his mother so much. The memories yearning for the love of a mother were still there. Growing up without any parental support had been tough, but his friends had managed to make up for it. Now here he was, standing there in the embrace of his mother. Not the chakra that she had left behind, no, this was the real deal. He could feel her warm touch, the tender movements filled with love. Clenching his fists together, Naruto dug his nails right into his tender flesh in hopes of utilizing pain to eliminate the dream, or illusion he had been shoved into. Blood flowed out of the wound he had inflicted upon himself, and a wince of pain had caught the woman's attention. "Darling, you're bleeding." Grabbing a roll of bandages, Lady Astaroth began wrapping the soft white bandages around his hand where uneven scratches formed. Finishing her work and tying it with care, Lady Astaroth smiled before wrinkling her nose in displeasure. Giving him a stern look, Lady Astaroth held up the bandaged hand with concern filling her eyes once again. Watching her the entire time, Naruto simply blinked owlishly. The pain was real. So that meant this Lady Astaroth was as well. A conflicted smile formed on his face as Naruto withdrew his hands slightly. Ajuka Beelzebub, the brilliant inventor of the evil pieces, and indirectly the raiding games, was content with his life. Marrying a beautiful woman and raising a wonderful son alongside her had been the happiest 7 years of his life. Though he found great pleasure in his inventions and other projects, returning home to Kushina and Naruto was something he could say was probably the best part of his day. Kushina, his wife, the now Lady Astaroth, and his son, Naruto Astaroth, how happy those two made him was piratically unimaginable. Humming a calming tune, Ajuka entered the gigantic castle he had been given to himself and his family with a smile in place. Servants appointed at the castle's front greeted him with bows, which he acknowledged with a nod of his head. The good day he had at Agria's would surely transmit to home, right? Nope, not even 10 steps into the castle, one of Kushina's personal maids had came straight for him. Normally, Kushina rarely looked for him when he came home. When she was mad, Kushina would confront him right away, no matter the time or place. Sending a maid to get him meant two things: either Kushina was waiting to punish him behind closed doors, or she was too angry at him for any form of conversation. Both presented unpleasant outcomes. "Lord Beelzebub, Lady Astaroth is awaiting your presence in your study," the maid said with a bow. Nodding his head in response, Ajuka slowly trekked up the stairs and headed straight for his study. Gently knocking on the door, Ajuka opened the door and walked right in. The current Beelzebub had not been expecting the scene before him. Seated on the chair with Naruto standing beside her, Kushina gave the boy a smile as she turned to face Ajuka. "Dear, this is terrible." Naruto lost his memory. The effects were immediate. Ajuka had lost all forms of fear and he bounded forward. Throwing his arms around Naruto with concerned eyes, Ajuka scanned the boy for any forms of abnormality with unrivaled intensity. Spotting nothing off about his son's appearance, Ajuka turned to Kushina with concern still in his eyes and asked, "What did the doctor say?" "He said that Naruto's mind is possibly cutting him off from his memories as a way to cope with some traumatic event or memory." "Do you know anything about that?" Her words had been very effective. Ajuka's mind wandered to the memories of his time with Naruto. Having been appointed as a Satan was bad for family. Unable to take care of his like normally, Ajuka had been forced to spend time with his son through some questionable means. For example, Ajuka had decided it had been a safe idea to take Naruto along with him to visit Cocytus, the deepest realm of the underworld where some of the most dangerous beings resided. Every inspection of the area had to be done by himself personally. Taking Naruto along was a bad idea from the start. How Surzax had managed to talk him into doing it was questionable. Lady Astaroth, who had been watching her husband carefully, bustled in anger as she brought a fist down on the head of Ajuka. Forcing the current Beelzebub to the ground, the woman's angry expression had been enough to silence the possible protest Ajuka could have made. "You idiot! What did you and Surzax do this time?" Night had come quickly. Naruto had been bathed and put to bed by his mother with an affectionate kiss placed on his forehead. Laying there in the soft layers of his supposed bed, Naruto eyed the darkness with an unreadable expression. Shooting an arm forward, Naruto could still make an outline of it as he continued to stare into the darkness. Gone were his toned arms attained by the days of hard work. Replacing them were the arms of a pampered child. Though the situation was understandable, Naruto still felt a pang of unease residing in this body. Even though every one of his senses were true and seemingly untouched by his death, Naruto could not believe any of this was real. Everything was like a dream. Then again, he had been the Ashura's transmigrant, the son of the Sage of Six Paths. Possibly this was a form of transmigration. Perhaps it was, perhaps it wasn't. There were too many uncertainties. Perhaps sleep would provide him with the answers he was hoping for. Or perhaps not. No matter what, it seemed he was stuck as Naruto Astaroth. There was no more denying that. The chakra he had once accumulated was replaced with the power of magic, as many of the servants had called it. Allowing his mind to wander, Naruto slept in hopes of finding more answers tomorrow. Hildegard, a member of the extra Devil's clans, hated Devil's society. From the start of her life, many in her clan had been trained to serve. Perhaps it was her pride that had refused to bend before anyone. Or simply it was the stage in her childhood that rejected the idea of being tied down by some wrinkly old man. That was why she had ran away from home. Abandoning the surname she had been given, Hildegard, Hilda for short, had rejected to take the abandoned name. Though the question as to how far a 7-year-old devil could get was left unanswered, Hilda did not care. Running from her home isolated at the edges of Agrias, Hilda had ran straight for the massive floating city. Accumulating stares and strange looks, Hilda ignored them all in favor of running into the city with an excited smile driving her forward. Unbeknownst to the young girl, a number of servants had been tailing her with orders to force bring her home. First time in Agrias had been quite breathtaking. Hilda would have enjoyed the scenery if the crowds of tourists had not drove her deeper into the city. Moving through the maze of buildings with her excitement still building, Hilda continued to drive herself deeper and deeper into the city. With hundreds of tourists flowing through the streets, Hilda struggled through the masses with annoyance quickly building up inside of her. The time marveling at the city had gone by quickly. In less than an hour, the fascination of a new city vanished, leaving behind much to yearn for. Now, with the excitement gone and the adrenaline no longer pumping through their veins, Hilda simply lost her joy and found herself seated at the end of an alley. Sighing, Hilda clutched her growling stomach and unzipped the backpack she moved into her lap. Pulling out a small piece of bread, Hilda sat in the shadow of the building munching on the bread with uncertainty in her eyes. Running away had been a split decision, and now the holes in her plan were beginning to catch up to her. With no idea of her destination nor plans for the future, Hilda was stuck between a rock and a hard place. Her situation could not get worse, right? Nope, it seemed fate was out to get her that day. Having been resting in the alley for an hour or so, Hilda had recharged and was ready for another trek into the city. The energy was needed. Walking right out of the alley, Hilda soon rejoined with the moving crowds. And that was where fate had played its hand. Moving through the crowd with no destination in mind, Hilda had soon found herself lost and without a clue as to where she was. Walking around without looking exactly where she was going, the blonde girl walked right into someone. "Look where you're going," Hilda snapped as she rubbed her head in annoyance. "Ahaha, sorry about that." "Really sorry." Opening her shut eyes, Hilda glared at the victim with frustration and anger seeping through her gaze. Seated on the cobblestone floor in front of her was none other than Naruto Astaroth himself. Chuckling sheepishly, Naruto pushed himself off of the ground and brushed the dust off of his clothing. Offering Hilda a hand with a nervous smile in place, Naruto had half expected the girl to accept his offer. Instead, Hilda slapped the hand away and got up on her own. The glare she wore never softened. "I wasn't looking where I was going, sorry about that," Naruto said as he rubbed the back of his head. "I'm Naruto, by the way, nice to meet you, just watch where you are going next time," Hilda responded. Naruto merely chuckled again. Hilda wore an annoyed expression as she frowned at her fellow blonde. The frustration that had been building up within her was in need of release. Naruto, who had simply been an unsuspecting victim in the entire situation, was the perfect one for Hilda to release her emotions on. No matter how little he deserved it. While Naruto, on the other hand, was lost beyond belief, and bumping into the girl had been enough to initiate a conversation between the two. That way, he could somehow get directions back to the castle. "Listen, Hilda. Yeah, Hilda-san. Do you know the way back to Beelzebub Castle?" Naruto asked with cheeks flushed with embarrassment. "I'm sort of lost." Hilda merely stared at Naruto for a few seconds before she huffed and folded her arms. Influenced by both her frustration and pride, Hilda refused to answer the question asked by the other blonde. Without knowledge of the town in the first place, Hilda did not want to see what would happen if she too admitted to know nothing about the town. "Why do you need to go to Beelzebub Castle anyway? I live there." "Ha! What servant wouldn't know the directions to his own lord's castle?" Naruto grumbled at the comment. Being called a servant was one thing and insulting his own sense of direction was another. Having a lifetime of experience on how to deal with people, Naruto did not seem to have been using it. "Can you give me directions or not?" Naruto asked with a sigh. "Unless you don't know where it is." The comment in Tien had been more to himself than directed at Hilda as the thought crossed Naruto's mind. The possibility of bumping into a stranger to Agrias was high due to the massive amounts of tourists the city received. Though his comment had been innocent enough, Hilda had taken it as a blow to her pride. Bristling in anger, Hilda shoved Naruto to the side and stomped away. As she ran, Naruto immediately ran after her. Wait! Can you please give me directions? No, please, no, come on, pretty please, no. There were a few things Ajuka feared in his life, and his wife was rated the highest on the list. The man who was praised as one of the strongest devils to have ever feared his wife above all else. Losing sight of Naruto was not going to end well for him. Forgetting their anniversary was one thing, losing their son was a completely other situation. Having suffered the consequences of angering his beloved wife, Ajuka did not want to know what horrors awaited him when Kushina found out he had lost Naruto on their trip to Agrias. Frankly, Ajuka would have much rather fight in the civil war again rather than confront his wife without Naruto. God only knew of the pain awaiting him. Have you seen Naruto? Ajuka demanded as his worry-filled eyes locked onto a random servant's. No, and my lord. I haven't seen Lord Naruto in the past hour. Groaning, Ajuka clutched his face with both his hands as more possibilities of his punishment came to mind. Though emotionally struggling, Ajuka always had a plan. Regaining his posture after a minute of troubling thoughts, Ajuka turned to the servant once more and spoke in a hurry. Gather the servants and look for Naruto immediately. Why yes, my lord. Losing Naruto was worse than anything else he had ever done. Though Ajuka worried about the consequences, the super devil was far more concerned about his son's safety. Calling Kushina would only throw more chaos into the fray. Kushina had turned the castle upside down when Naruto had supposedly been lost. There was going to be no positive outcome if she knew about Naruto's current condition, for both himself and the city. Never in her life had Hilda been more annoyed than she was today. Naruto was considerably the most annoying individual she had ever met. Persistent and unwilling to accept the answer no, Hilda had been subjected to a never-ending flow of words. Honestly, the young girl did not know how anyone put up with Naruto. The blonde did not seem willing to give up until he got the directions she did not have. Too prideful for her own good, Hilda still spurned to tell him that she did not even know where she was walking. Though she wished to rid herself of the annoyance, Hilda refused to speak another word to the other blonde. The unwillingness to do so was probably the greatest desire she had felt in a while. Come on, Hilda-chan, please? Naruto asked with pleading eyes. I really need to head home. For the last time, no. Now leave me alone. Hilda growled. Stomping away once again, Hilda had lost all hope of losing the blonde. She could not outrun him. She of all people could not outrun a short brat like him. Naruto was far more agile than she had expected. Not only did the inability to outrun Naruto add on to her already growing frustration, but it did not help in her destination-less journey either. Naruto, who had been following her closely by the side, the questions he had been asking from the past hour had been left unanswered still. Even though Hilda seemed unwilling to answer, Naruto was not giving up just yet. However illogical the idea was, he had never given up one before, and he was not going to do so now. Throughout his life, he had never backed down from anything, and God did it cause him problems. Well, if you won't tell me where Beelzebub Castle is, can you tell me where we are? Naruto questioned as he looked around their surroundings. Hilda stopped and turned to Naruto, forcing the blonde to halt just inches away from her. The glare Naruto was receiving could kill, leaving the blonde curious as to why he was receiving another glare. That was before Naruto a thought dawned on the blonde Astaroth. You don't know where we are, do you? Of course I do. I just don't want to tell you. Huffing in annoyance, Hilda flushed in embarrassment as she turned away from the other blonde. Naruto only groaned as he thought of the possible punishments that would fall upon him. If Kushina was anything like the one he had met, there was going to be hell to pay in order to appease her. Hildegard, how nice of you to drop by. The new voice had forced both blondes to stop in their tracks. Standing there garbed in all black, a man with unruly blonde hair and clear green eyes much like Hilda's very own smiled arrogantly at the two younger blondes. Hilda clenched her fists as she took a hesitant step backwards. Naruto noticed the sudden change in persona and narrowed his eyes upon seeing it. Whoever this guy was, he most likely knew something he did not about Hilda. Why are you here? Abelard, Hilda asked through clenched teeth. The newly named Abelard merely chuckled. His humorless laugh resonated throughout the empty streets as the arrogant smile he wore widened. Taking a step closer to the duo, Abelard shifted in the black cloak he wore, showing off the polished blade hidden underneath. Skillfully toying around with it, the man slowly approached them two blondes with intentions obvious. Aiming the dagger at Hildegard, Abelard chuckled at the sight of the young blonde shake in fear. Hydra, you and your little boyfriend can't escape now running from the Abaddon clan. How stupid can you be? Abelard mused in a vexing tone before turning his attention to Naruto. And who might that little blonde be? Another practice dummy? PSH, like I'm scared of someone like you. Naruto snorted. Oh ho, your boyfriend has quite a mouth on him, but a mouth won't do you any good. Finishing his sentence with a twisted smile, Abelard charged. Brandishing the dagger he held, the man delivered a number of cuts and slashes at Naruto, who dodged quite successfully, until an unexpected cut had managed to find its place on his arm. Backing off quickly, Naruto grunted and cursed himself under his breath. It had only been a week since he had been in this new body. Even with a week's time, he still had not managed to gotten used to it. Vastly different from his aged one he had gone accustomed to, Naruto's lack of familiarity had gotten him cut. At times like these, Naruto hated his big mouth. Even though he was at a clear disadvantage against whoever he was fighting, Naruto still had to pick a fight with him. Not so tough now, are you? Abelard sneered as he twirled the dagger with a smirk placed on his visage. When I'm done with you, Hildegard is next. Hilda watched the exchange with a shaky step. Standing only meters before her was Abelard, one of the Abaddon clan's most feared killers. Now Naruto was going to die because of her. Sure, he was annoying, but it did not mean she wanted him to die. Though she denied it, Hilda had taken a liking to the blonde and his silly antics. Providing her with both companionship and a form of entertainment, Hilda did not want the other blonde to die, especially from the one sent after her. Directing her shaky hands into her bag, Hilda pulled out a black parasol before dropping the small bag. Pulling at the umbrella's handle, a stainless blade freely escaped the sheath. Dropping the sheath, Hilda fought off her fear and charged. Going straight for Abelard, Hilda swung her blade, failing to take off his head as she had intended to. How sweet, now you two brats are going to fight together, saves me time to kill you off one by one, Abelard said before deflecting Hilda's blade and delivering a small cut against the young maid-to-be's leg. I thought they trained you better than that, Hildegard. Forced backwards, Hilda growled under her breath as she parried and dodged a flurry of slashes and jabs aimed directly for her. Cut after cut, Hilda continued to fight the losing battle as a number of small cuts decorated her body. Naruto had not been standing idle. Rushing forward, the former Uzumaki used whatever momentum he had obtained and threw a kick at Abelard, successfully catching the man off guard. Grunting in pain, the man backed away quickly as Hilda slashed at the spot he had once stood. You little shit, I thought you would have ran away. Hilda too had similar thoughts as she gave Naruto a bewildered glance. Why are you still here? Run, I'm not leaving you alone, Naruto declared. I do not leave my friends behind. That stopped both the Abaddons in their tracks. Friend, I only met you 2 hours ago, you idiot. If Naruto had heard her, he did not respond. Too busy staring at Abelard. Hilda continued to growl in frustration. Naruto was being impossible once again. Normally, someone willing to fight an assassin for her would have been endearing if she did not think it was stupid. Sure, anyone would have been touched by his declaration, but to Hilda, it was plain stupid. Fighting for someone he hardly knew and much less a friend was nothing but idiotic. Having been quite clear on their relationship from the start, Hilda could not believe the blonde as willing to fight for her. Ha 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 ha. You two are a riot. Abelard laughed as he threw his head back and laughed till his sides hurt. Man, if I didn't have to kill you, I would probably keep you two as pets. Nah, Hildegard, your fairy tale did come true. Here's your knight in shining armor. Finishing his sentence with more giggles, Abelard continued to laugh without much worry about the two as Naruto sent Hilda a confused glance. I'm a member of the Abaddon clan. We are one of the extra devil clans. Our members are trained to serve as maids and possibly peerage members. Hilda explained. I didn't want to serve anyone, so I ran away and here I am. That explained it. The sheer idiocy of Naruto's comment had seemed to run its course as Abelard recovered and suppressed his mirth. Removing the grin he wore in favor of a much more sinister smile, Abelard charged again. This time, both Naruto and Hilda were ready for his swift strikes. As Hilda parried his blows, Naruto threw in some of his own when he saw openings. Working together to the best of their ability, both blondes had been able to hold Abelard off somewhat before they were pushed back again. And now, accompanying him was a beam of magic aiming straight for the two. Driven further and further back, Naruto's eyes scanned every little detail Abelard made, calculating and solving each equation he had put in place of the man's movements. Now that was a surprise. Taking a few seconds to recover from the odd action, Naruto's mind began racing. This must be what Ajuka or Dad was talking about, though I may have the mentality of my old self. This isn't my old body or mine. I am Naruto Astaroth, the son of Ajuka Beelzebub, the one sole user of Kankara formula. Then if he could use formulas and math to use his magic, then I can too, or at least I hope I can, Naruto thought with an abnormal amount of positivity. Channeling the energy dwelling inside of him, Naruto felt the sudden flare of power swarm his body as he called forth his magical power or demonic energy in this matter. In succession with the flow of equations and numbers peeling off of his brain, Naruto felt a sensation of power flow through him as a green circle of magic shimmered into existence. Modifying the bolt of magical energy flying straight for him, Naruto used the calculations to redirect the beam in a new direction. Abelard had been far too surprised to have done anything as he felt the own results of his attack sending him flying backwards and into a street lamp. Naruto felt a sudden drain on his reserves as he grunted in slight pain. Though his success attempt in casting what he would have assumed was the Kankara formula, Naruto could not say his body could take the sudden strain of it. Sure, he had been through worse, but this body had never been through this amount of pain before. The magic he had used to cast the spell taken its toll. Normally, using a complex jutsu he had never done before in his old body would have drained his reserves and dwindled his stamina. But This body did not fall victim to the easier side effects. How did you do that? Hilda asked with wide eyes. I don't know, Naruto grunted as he fought off the burning sensation clutching onto his stomach, but it sure hurts. Casting Kankara formula was definitely going to need some more work, if he survived the encounter and all. But then again, Naruto wasn't even sure he had used the Juka's signature move. Having no demonstration from the green-haired man, Naruto honestly only had words to go off of. Then again, it did not really matter. What mattered was the safety of himself and Hilda's. Though he was going to have to figure out just how much math he knew. Naruto would have been quite impressed with himself if he was not fighting a dagger-wielding psycho. Normally he hated math, and now he found out his new self was quite good with it. What were the odds? Let's get out of here, Hilda said as she gave her shoulder to the thankful blonde. Abelard will not stay down for long, and that was when Sleeping Beauty had decided to awaken. Without even seeing it physically, the sudden pressure hanging in the air signified Abelard's recovery. Barely able to turn his head to steal a glance at the man, Naruto used whatever strength he could muster and shoved Hilda to the side as a flying dagger tore through the air. Narrowly avoiding a fatal blow, Naruto had been gifted with more pain as the dagger lodged itself onto his shoulder. God, why did he always get injured on the shoulder? You little shits! Abelard howled. I am going to destroy you. Tearing apart the distance between himself and Naruto, Abelard pounced on the boy as he began assaulting the boy without mercy. Blinded by his own anger, Abelard neglected to disarm Hilda, leading to more pain on his part. Growling, Abelard glared at Hilda as he felt the cold metal pierce his skin and dig into his muscles. Slapping the girl away, Abelard tore the weapon off of his body, resulting in large amounts of blood seeping from the wound. You bitch! I am going to, Abelard growled before his ears picked up on the strangled voice of another. Huh? Kankara Formula 1, Naruto gasped through the chokehold he was placed in. Just like that, Abelard flew. Blasted right off of Naruto, the cloaked man shot into the air by an invisible force, sending him straight into a building. Gasping for air, Naruto pushed himself off of the ground and ignored his burning joints as he struggled towards Hilda. Physically and mentally exhausted from the fighting, Naruto could feel the toll done to the much younger body. No longer blessed with the healing abilities provided to him by Kurama, Naruto could now see why Sasuke had declared his healing capabilities stupidly annoying. Placed in the body of a child who lacked physical might, Naruto had taken the attacks without anything to soften them. And boy did he miss self-regeneration right now. I am going to. Abelard's voice ended there. Whatever the psycho was going to say stopped as a new presence entered the fray. With a murderous glare marring his features, Ajuka stood there with a small army of servants behind him. The amount of pressure rolling off of the man was insane. The sheer anger Ajuka was feeling could be felt by everyone. The gentle green eyes Ajuka had always held were replaced with the eyes of a monster hungry for blood. Never in devil history had Ajuka ever been so orangey with anyone. The glare he was sending Abelard was enough to stop the merciless killer stone cold. Just what do you think you're doing with my son? Naruto's first impression of devil society had been underwhelming. The members around his age had been either spoiled beyond belief or simply could not hold a normal conversation. For example, Rias Gremory, the heiress to the Gremory clan, was a total freak when it came to anime, as she called it. With his use of the same honorifics, Rias had simply assumed he was a huge fan as well. Honestly, the other devils had their own quirks as well. For one, another one of the numerous heirs, Riser, was a total pervert, reminding him much of Jiraiya. Though there were clear differences, Riser's love for the female body had given Naruto quite the sense of nostalgia. Till the Hilda punched Riser in the stomach for attempting to flirt with her. Even so, Naruto had hit it off with the young phoenix. Other than Riser, Naruto had managed to befriend another, Sararog Bale. Other than Sararog and Riser, Naruto had been unable to befriend the others. Some being too cold Sona and others simply being far too creepy. Most prominently his supposed uncle, Diodora Astaroth. Diodora was quite the devil. Wearing a mask of both kindness and weakness, Diodora gave off no image of an individual who could hurt anyone. Well, that was what his persona gave off anyway. Well, from the thousands of people Naruto had met in his past life, Naruto could easily say Diodora was hiding something behind his persona. Diodora's growing peerage of holy maidens did not help on the matter either. Though Naruto's time as a devil had been short and he lacked knowledge of devil society, it was common fact that anyone associated with the church or angel faction was not welcomed, especially in peerages. Why and how Diodora had gained 2 holy maidens in his peerage was truly a mystery. Other than the creepy feeling the young Astaroth gave off, Diodora was quiet and kept to himself, only speaking when a subject of interest was spoken about. As Ajuka had said, the young devils were the 72 pillars future leaders of the clans. Necessary connections were needed in order to maintain the political system long established since the Civil War. Peace and unity had been hard enough to establish when war broke out, and the older generation wished to maintain the fragile peace for however long they could. 1 war was enough, but 2, it was just ridiculous how much blood was shed during the 2 wars that had been so closely tied to the reformation of the government. The close relations between the clans had played a major role in the anti-Satan faction's victory, and wishes to continue such a relationship had resulted in the early meeting between the heirs and heiresses. A meeting that was considered a success even though it could have gone better. Riser Phoenix was what one would call a full-blown pervert. A young lad who enjoyed the sight of the opposite sex. Naruto simply proclaimed him as the second coming of Jiraiya, or perhaps Ebisu was more fitting. Definitely Ebisu. Nevertheless, Naruto found the young phoenix amusing and enjoyed his time spent with his fellow blonde. How Riser felt, Naruto was unsure. Naruto, we should go to the human world, just imagine what we can find there. Riser declared. Naruto, who had been seated beside him, merely raised an eyebrow out of curiosity. Though he had nothing against going to the human world for the first time, how they were going to get there had struck up the real question in his mind. Taking into consideration that the two of them were high-class devils, finding a way out of the underworld would be much harder, considering that no one would be willing to trust the two out in the human world without an excessive amount of protection. Though the concern was unneeded, Naruto acknowledged the concerns. Devils were not as fertile as humans, and thus children were rather precious in the society. Many cultures valued the young, but devils were far more extreme on the matter itself. Ever since the two wars, the population decline had been a major issue in the survival of the devils. To lose more members of the race, especially members of the remaining 72 pillars, would be damaging. How exactly are you planning on getting to the human world? Naruto asked, generally curious on his part. Well, we could get Sararag to help us. The guy needs to stop training. Anyway, Riser offered before gaining another thoughtful expression. Then we could overpower the guards, yeah. Then make a run for it again. Like in Gun. Rias is forcing you to watch anime again, isn't she? No, shut up. That brought a snort of amusement from the other blonde. It was a clear fact that Rias and Riser were both engaged. Having been given the information as children, their minds lacked any real hatred towards one another, aside from the perverse comments Riser would make here and there. Though Rias remained harshly critical of the arranged marriage, she did not resist as much as one had assumed. Showing displeasure over the decision, Rias had not been overly concerned with it. The relationship between Riser and Rias had been kind enough not to push forth a full-blown rejection of the marriage. Other than that, the relationship between thus far had been solely reliant on Rias's love for anime. Having insisted on watching it with anyone she could, Riser had been kind enough to, voluntarily become her partner when watching the shows. Besides the love for anime and everything in between, Rias had shown a great love for challenges, even though the young heiress was known to be a very sore loser. Do you want to go or not? Riser demanded. Fine, let me just get Hilda and we'll go. Naruto said. Mumbling something inaudible, Riser stalked away from the garden, leaving Naruto behind. Riser's plan had been simple enough. All they needed to do was knock out a number of guards before heading to the train station and sneaking onto a train heading to the human world. The only real issue would be fighting off the guards. That was where everyone else came in. The meeting between heirs and heiresses had been a success. The unique curiosity that all children shared, Naruto and Riser were not the only ones who wished to head to the human world. Sararag and Diodora both had been willing to participate in their little journey. Sona had been adamant on not going, leaving only Rias to come along with the four boys. That was how the duo had turned into a party of 5. Which only made things much harder. How are we going to get past those guards? Rias whispered quietly while she glanced at the 2 guards posted at the door. We can't just hurt them out like that, Riser. It would just be mean. Then how are we supposed to get past them, Rias? Riser argued with a frown. We can't just ask them to let us out. They'll tell our parents, and then we won't be able to go at all. As the two argued, Naruto and Sararag both ignored them in favor of planning their route of escape. Diodora merely remained quiet throughout the entire situation, leaving the 4 alone. Hilda, who had been watching the entire exchange, simply ignored them. We could simply just sneak around them, Naruto proposed with a thought. It would take too long to find another way out. The train leading to the human world would be leaving in an hour. We're already on a time limit, Naruto. Sararag replied as he stole another glance at the guards. Our best option is just to knock them out unless you have another idea. Well, the Kankara formula might work. Aju father has been giving me some help on mastering his technique. If I can modify something, I'd be able to use it as an attack against them, or we. No, Naruto, we are not going to do that. We could simply order them to allow us to pass. Diodora interrupted with a partial smile. Naruto and Sararag both stopped their conversation and turned to Diodora. The idea had merit, being one of the better ideas which got them out of the castle possibly. If they succeeded and forced the guards to allow them out, then they would simply tell their parents, ending their plan without even going to the second phase. However, the idea did provide the party of 5 with more options. Pondering on Diodora's words, Naruto snapped his fingers in realization as he drew everyone's attention onto him. Everyone had been overcomplicating their plans. Doing so had placed an illusion on their greatest power of all, nobility. Here's what we're gonna do, Naruto muttered. Naruto had been quite pleased with the human world thus far. The visit had begun an hour ago, and Naruto could honestly say he preferred it over the underworld. Sure, the underworld provided him with a world of opportunities. The excessive protection and surveillance placed upon him was getting rather annoying. While he understood the actions, it did not mean he liked them. When he had been chosen as Hokage, Naruto had honestly been thrilled beyond belief. His dream had finally came true, but the amount of protection placed on him by the ANBU was honestly, too much. Having the opportunity to negotiate about the guards in his past life, Naruto could not do it in his current one. Considering that both Ajuka and Kushina would think he was crazy for spouting about reincarnation and being a ninja in his past life. That was why the human world had been so appealing to Naruto. The humans treated him like another child instead of some lord that would kill them if any form of disrespect was shown. The only issue with the world was how easily he had lost contact with the others. Last time he had seen Riser was when Rias had dragged him off to find some merchandise while Sararog wandered off on his own. Naruto didn't even know what had happened to Diodora. All he knew is that he was in some unknown village by himself. And to make matters worse, a church was erected just a distance away from them. The amount of trouble they could cause was beyond belief. Coming in contact with the members of the church would lead to disastrous consequences. Naruto just hoped no one approached the building or possibly drew too much attention to themselves. There wasn't really much to do aside from explore. An agreement to rendezvous at the road leading into town had been made, and so the party of 5 did not need to worry too much about their companions. Not that children of their age could worry so much. Nevertheless, Naruto still possessed worry in his heart, but ignored it in favor of satisfying his curiosity that had been plaguing him ever since his arrival into this world. The others couldn't cause too much trouble. Well, he hoped they couldn't. As for himself, he couldn't really say. Exploring the city had been quite the experience, though the entire journey left him questioning his own judgment. The people had been kind enough, though they seemed rather tense, as if some veil of fear had been placed upon them. Help! Please anyone, help! Please, please help! The cry of a desperate child was hard to listen to. Perhaps it was the pain that enveloped one's heart when the cry registered. Yet still, not a single head had been turned nor a hand had been raised. The desperate cries only continued as the origins of the voice continued to run across the streets in hopes of finding someone, anyone to help. The villagers were hesitant in offering their service of the young boy. Fear had been a major factor in their decision to remain distant on the issue. Normally, such fears originated from outside sources, yet this one had been from one of their own. The church that had been offering its services since the town's creation had received a new priest, Valper Galii. That had been a turning point in the serene peace that had once enveloped the town. When Valper had arrived, it had not even been a week before kidnappings had been springing all over the town. Children of all ages went missing, leaving no traces to be found. Though the kidnappings were not formally related to Valper, townsfolk knew he was the source of it. Interfering brought nothing but pain and suffering. Running through the small streets with 2 burly men not far behind, was a young boy with wild, flaming red hair and a pair of gentle blue eyes. Chasing him relentlessly were 2 men garbed in all white. The only signs of their allegiance to any faction were the crosses worn across their necks. Doors were closed and blinds were drawn, leaving no one able to witness the event. Yet, the men working under the church had never expected Naruto to be there. Watching the entire event unfold, the blonde devil frowned deeply at the lack of action. Clenching his fists, Naruto had made an action that he had hoped to avoid. Jumping right into the chase, Naruto caught the boy's hand and pulled him away. Dragging him away from the 2, Naruto ignored the surprised glance sent his way and focused solely on escaping. Get back here! Split up! We can corner the 2 brats this way. Naruto scanned his surroundings as he heard the exchange of words. Currently running in an alleyway between 2 buildings, the only 2 possible escape routes were going to be blocked if he didn't do something quick. One of them was most likely cutting ahead of the other, hoping to capture them by eliminating all possible escape routes. Glancing at the other exit once more, Naruto turned to the man sprinting towards them from behind and charged. The sudden action was definitely unexpected, as seen by the man's lack of preparation when Naruto with the help of the red-haired boy slammed right into him. Normally, plowing into a full-grown man would have ended badly, if not for the man's attempted stop, thus lessening the force behind the impact and allowing the momentum-driven boys to slam right into him without much of a hindrance. You little shits! I'll kill you! Do you hear me? I'll show you what happens when you defy Lord Valper. The running had ended when Naruto came to a stop near the town's park. Taking shelter among the trees, Naruto rested against a tree, recovering from his headache caused by the impact not a while ago. The red-haired boy too began recovering from the impact, leaving both boys without much to say until pain stopped swelling in their heads. A little over 10 minutes had passed and Naruto began to truly study the boy he had helped escape. Dressed in robes tarnished by dirt and grim, Naruto's surprise had not been left in the shadows. Then came the matter of actually talking to the boy. You're a devil, aren't you? The boy asked as his features scrunched. That is one way to start off a conversation, Naruto thought before nodding his head in confirmation. I'm Naruto Astaroth. Naruto offered a hand. Reinhard van Estria. The newly named Reinhard replied. Estria, why does that name sound so familiar? Yes, the house of Estria is a clan of master swordsmen. Naruto acknowledged the response with a nod before he gave Reinhard a curious gaze. The men chasing him had been fully intent on causing harm to Reinhard. If he had his facts right, the house of Estria possessed a legendary blade which rivaled that of the greatest holy swords. From what he had read, the Estrias had been allied with the church for centuries. The more Naruto thought on this situation, the more questions came into existence. Why did you help me? Reinhard asked as his features scrunched once again. Why you, a devil, help me, a member of the opposing faction? Cause I wanted to. Naruto replied in a rather nonchalant tone. If Reinhard had been expecting another answer, he was sure showing it. The pure surprise he had displayed on his visage was enough to showcase what the boy truly thought of devils to Naruto. That reaction alone had truly showed what many thought of the devil race as a whole. Reinhard recovered from his shock but continued to press on. What do you mean you wanted to? Aren't you going to ask for a payment of some sort? You are a devil, aren't you? Unless you have some ramen, then no. And yes, I am. That left Reinhard completely baffled. The stories told of devils as greedy and manipulating. Yet here was a real-life devil, holding no form of interest in anything Reinhard could have deemed important, unless he counted some broth and noodles. Even the divine blessing of mind reading showed the blonde's lack of interest. That raised a second question in the young Estria's mind. Had the devil voluntarily helped him just simply because he wished to? Naruto, I am in need of your assistance, Reinhard said, truly desperate at this point. Valper Galilei held the image of a kind priest. Adorned in pure white robes, the elderly man's aging face only hid behind the false smile. The bespectacled old man was very manipulative. His ultimate desire to crack the code of holy swords and their selective wielders had been what driven him through life. Doing actions that many would consider horrendous, Valper did not care. All he wished for was to finally wield the blades he marveled at when he was a child. Admiration for the few wielders had soon changed to hatred. The jealousy that Valper had felt was a major influence in his boiling hatred he now felt. Imagine his surprise when the renowned Estria family had taken a visit. An opportunity like this came only once in a lifetime. And Valper had taken it. Drugging both father and son, Valper had been quite surprised when he found out Reinhard was immune to the effects. After the blunder, Valper had sent his men to recapture Reinhard as he caged Heinkel. Lord Valper, the Estria brat, he got away, please forgive us, my lord. Valper frowned at the words. Though he felt great displeasure from the results, it did not truly matter. The only other church aside from this one was quite a distance away. Even if Reinhard had decided to travel that far in order to call for help, the travel would not do the child any good. Valper could simply pack up and leave before the boy even reached help. But if young Reinhard was anything like his family, he would not leave, but fight head-on in order to retrieve his father. So, the situation had not been a total loss, and his plans were still on track. No matter, guard Lord Estria well now, we don't want him getting loose now, do we? Valper said before chuckling. Young Reinhard will come to us. There is no need to waste more men looking for him. Call for all the men to return. At once, my lord. Why should we help him? Riser demanded with a scowl. The group of devils were gathered in the park as a furious Riser sent Reinhard a withering glare. Naruto had been insistent on helping the Estria while a number of other devils remained uncertain on the matter, while others, like Riser, was clearly against it. A discussion had been ignited and Naruto remained adamant on the topic and refused to back down, much to Riser's annoyance. Sararag remained neutral, only offering his opinion when he deemed necessary. Rias and Diodora had remained quiet the entire discussion. Disagreements between Naruto and Riser would always lead to rowdy shouting, while Sararag was forced to play the middleman. Because we can, Riser! Naruto snapped. I am not going to just stand here when we can help Reinhard. Then do it without me, Naruto. I am not helping the enemy. After shouting that, Riser stormed off with a huff. Rias and Diodora both shared a look before walking off to follow the enraged phoenix. Though Rias had shown a more apologetic expression, Naruto was left with only Sararag and Reinhard at the park, both unwilling to speak after the outburst. Naruto honestly could not blame Riser. Raised with a biased view of the church and angel faction, the unwillingness to help the clan had been quite the obvious reaction. Why didn't you leave, Sararag? Naruto asked with a sigh. I can't let my rival get himself killed now, can I? Sararag responded with a smirk. Returning the smirk with one of his own, Naruto and the Bale heir shared a fist bump before they turned their attention to Reinhard. The young Estria had felt rather guilty when the other devils had left. Riser's angry declaration had meant nothing to him, but the feeling of causing such trouble for Naruto had been what really brought forth the guilt. The awkward tension had died when the remaining devils shared a friendly fist bump, leaving the matter to be discussed. Reinhard, do you have an idea how we can get your dad back? Naruto questioned. Nodding his head in response, Reinhard grabbed hold of a stick and began drawing a rough sketch of the church. Marking significant positions, Reinhard pointed directly to the church's front. The front is the least guarded place. Though the locals have an idea of what's happening, Valper wants to keep the opening as normal as possible. But they can spot us from a mile away. The best way would be to attack the side. There would be more guards, but we have the element of surprise. Riser growled in rage as he stomped away from the park. Rias and Diodora both followed him from closely behind. Though neither of them wished to be caught in his rage-induced thrashes, Rias had been quite angry at the blonde to have stopped herself from interfering. Watching Riser burn tree after tree whilst filling the air with unsavory phrases, Rias had had enough. Walking right in front of the enraged phoenix, Rias crossed her arms in a mixture of anger and annoyance, as she caught Riser's attention. I can't believe you, Riser. You would leave Naruto, Rias began in hopes of reprimanding the phoenix. Me? You should be scolding Naruto. That bastard always does this. He's always helps people, he never realizes when others might be using him. Riser yelled just before igniting another tree in a raging inferno. Unfazed by the fire, Rias crossed her arms in annoyance. Honestly, the boys she had to deal with were all so stubborn. Riser for one was never willing to admit anything, even apologizing became a challenge. The pride Riser possessed seemed unwilling to allow him to bow his head and accept himself in the wrong. Then there was Naruto. The blonde Astaroth was adamant on helping others and refused to stop until he succeeded. No matter what stood in his way, Naruto found a way across it. Then you're going to let him fight exorcists on his own? Rias asked. You're going to let your friends fight them by themselves? Clenching his fists, Riser stormed off without completing the conversation. Reinhard panted heavily as he charged through the mess of guards without stopping for anything. Having ran for quite some time followed by performing a number of jumps and leaps, Reinhard had exhausted his energy rather quickly when dodging the swords and guns that had been targeting him. With the assistance of both Naruto and Sararag, Reinhard had little trouble reaching the room which held his father prisoner. Mass-produced holy sword in hand, Reinhard found himself pushed straight into a fight. Mercilessly striking him with quick, decisive blows was one of the more prominent members of the church, Fried Selzen. How Valper managed to gain the allegiance of the moral-less man, Reinhard held no hints of an idea, but it did present trouble for him. Ahahaha. Hey Heinkel, your bastard son's here. Fried declared in an all-too-cheerful manner. The shitty old man did say I could have fun when you arrived. Get ready to die. Dashing to avoid a fatal cut, Reinhard hastily parried a strike aimed for his neck and sent Fried back with a push. The distance did not really do much as Fried charged the very next second. Ducking under another slash, Reinhard easily deflected a sloppy cut and retaliated with a cut of his own. Being the first to draw blood, Reinhard tensed when Fried's crazed smile dropped slightly as he touched the fresh blood oozing from the cut that appeared on his cheek. In a flash, Fried's grin widened and his murderous intent flared. Pulling out an exorcist's gun, a barrage of light bullets decorated the wall behind Reinhard as the young Estria dodged successfully. That was all Reinhard had needed. Charging, Reinhard attacked Fried with a series of fluid cuts, managing to draw more blood before Fried retaliated with a kick. You're not bad, you little shit. The old bastard said you'd be fun. Reinhard, do not allow yourself to be distracted. Heinkel shouted as he watched the fight behind a set of bars. Nodding his head in acknowledgement, Reinhard dodged more bullets before he parried a sword slash. Fried snarled just as he pushed his blade forward, forcing Reinhard to back up. Pinning him to a wall, Fried moved his other hand and aimed the exorcist's gun directly at Reinhard. Smiling wickedly, Fried pulled the trigger without fail. On instinct, Reinhard threw his head back, allowing the bullet to graze the skin around his neck. Reinhard quickly retaliated. Throwing Fried off of him with whatever strength he could muster, the young Estria swiped a clean cut on He-Man's shoulder, filling his ears with the annoyed growls of Fried. Fried, we must leave now. The voice belonged to the one and only Valper Galilei. Standing a distance away with a briefcase in hand, Valper dashed ahead as more of his men fell behind to stop pursuers. That shitty Gramps. Fried growled as he sent a glare at Reinhard. Don't think this is over, you little shit. Like that, Fried ran. Following Valper out of the church, follower after follower poured out after Fried had left. Soon, the church was left empty aside from the hungry growls of fires consuming the flammable materials with great vigor. Reinhard rushed to free his father. Slicing the locks open and freeing Heinkel from his bindings, Reinhard shared an emotional embrace with his father as the worries of both father and son were released. Son, I am so proud of you, Heinkel said. Reinhard smiled at the comment before it dimmed when his thoughts drifted towards Naruto. Father, I wish to repay my debt to another. I owe a devil a great deal for your rescue. If you approve, then I wish to repay my debt to him. Perhaps he could possibly help cure mother's disease as well. I know we traveled here in order to find a cure. Heinkel's smile widened at the words. Clapping his son on the shoulders, Heinkel eyed his son directly in the eyes as he spoke. Son, a knight must always pay his debts. If you believe this is the right choice, then go forth. I shall support you along the way. Naruto and company stared at the scene with a mixture of emotions. While Naruto had a smile present, the others had varying emotions. Sararag hid behind his neutral mask as he crossed his arms and turned to Riser, whom had stood a little distance away. The Phoenix had came against his own words and helped out with the situation, though he claimed to have only been here to bail them out of trouble. Sharing a friendly smirk, Naruto and the other two made their way out of the destroyed church in order to regroup with the other two. Never glancing back, Naruto soon stopped when a voice had filled the air. Wait! Turning around, Naruto came face to face with the smiling Reinhard. The raiding games provided grand opportunities for high-class devils of all kinds. Competition as great among the participants, and rivalries fueled by the desire for glory had brought forth a new love for devil kind. The games had been created by Ajuka Beelzebub as a way for devils to gain glory through battles against each other. It was a smart idea, eliminating a reason for violence outside the faction as well as create a new form of entertainment, bringing forth both economic and social changes. With a massive boost in economy as both private companies and government alike moved to accommodate for the unexpected popularity of the raiding games, the creation had been a major success. That was one of the many ways the underworld had been recovering from their losses during the past wars, and that reason alone was how Naruto and his two friends developed unwavering rivalries. All three of them had different goals. While Sararag desired to become a Satan and Riser wished to surpass his brother, one of the top 10 highest-ranking participants of the raiding games. Naruto, he was different. His goals had never really aligned with the raiding games. What he wished for really could not be given to him by the raiding games or the devil faction in general. He didn't want to return to the elemental nations. He had done his part, and all he could do was have faith in the next generation. Even if Naruto did somehow manage to find a way back to the elemental nations, it would not feel right. He had spent one lifetime forging a gentle peace among the nations. There was no need to stay any longer. Returning would only make him feel like a tyrant. Having accumulated overwhelming support from the people, Naruto doubted his decisions were all perfect, and continuously influencing the workings of the elemental nations did not feel right. What Naruto wished for now was to find out why. Why exactly he had been reincarnated into this world. Yet, it did not mean he did not find the games interesting. With an entirety of classes dedicated to teaching the rules and regulations of the games, it truly made Naruto wonder how influential the games really were. Aside from the classes, mock raiding games set in place for the sole purpose of practice. With the sheer popularity of the raiding games, it really was no surprise that small pocket dimensions had been created for practice. Though only high-class devils and devils with higher rankings were allowed to use the areas for mock raiding games, it was still a sight to see. And not only did the extra fields allow other devils to prepare for their matches, but it also allowed the younger generation to have their own matches, compete with one another. A wonderful creation it was, a way to both build bonds and rivalries between devils alike, igniting a flare of competition that only pushed individuals and their peerages alike to work harder. And that was where Naruto was currently. Seated in one of the many seats built in one of the numerous arenas, Naruto's blue eyes locked on the field with a glimmer of interest. Beside him was Sararag and his newly appointed queen, Kisha Abaddon. Though Kisha held a polite expression, her glares directed at Hilda were easily visible through her mask of politeness. Tension thick in the air, either Sararag or Naruto showed signs on stopping the fierce glare match between both Hilda and Kisha. Though either of the two kings seemed willing to stop the two, Reinhard had taken it upon himself to play the middleman, just in case either of the two decided to vent the anger out on each other. Wherever the anger had come from, it seemed to only fuel both of the kings' desire to one-up each other. Naruto, it seems even our queens are eager for battle, Sararag said with a growing smirk. Don't you think it is time? Not yet, Sararag, Naruto replied before returning the smirk with one of his own. Right now is not the time for a raiding game between us. I guess you're right. This is not the stage I want to win against you, my rival, on. I'm not going to lose, Sararag. Smile widening in response, Sararag raised his fist. Naruto mimicked his rival's actions and the two shared a fist bump. Naruto, can you promise me something? Turning to Sararag, Naruto gave him a curious glance. Sararag clenched a fist and held it up high, staring at the endless sky from above. The heir to the Bale clan stared into the underworld sky with eyes burning with determination. Promise me you won't lose until we face each other. Promise me you won't lose to anyone. Naruto's smile widened to impossible degrees as he too threw up his fist. While he did not hold the same excitement Sararag felt about fighting strong opponents, the prospect of facing off against his rival did fill him with a feeling of exhilaration. The same exhilaration he had felt when Sasuke and him had fought back then. The same feeling he would use to fuel his own determination with. You can count on it, Sararag. Until we face each other in a raiding game, I won't lose. You better do the same. The feeling of an actual raiding game was there. Watching the battles decorating the stadium, Riser's excitement could not be held back anymore. Participating in one of the many mock raiding games, Riser's determination to surpass both his friends and his brother only burned brighter as he faced down his opponent, Zephyror Glaciolabalas. Though the young devils lacked full peerages, it did not stop them from facing each other. Having been exposed to the infectious excitement of the raiding games, there was no surprise that the two most boisterous of the group had jumped immediately to participate in the mock game. Magic was being thrown around the magically constructed city by both peerages in hopes of knocking the other out. Watching from opposing sides, the two enemy kings stood without moving. Riser had lost 3 pieces with a remaining of 2 left at his disposal. Zephyror had been left at a much worse condition. While he had the advantage in numbers, Riser held the advantage of surprise. Equipping every member of his peerage with a single flask of Phoenix Tears, Riser's plan had eliminated the need for a healer, as his peerage members healed themselves with a single use of the Phoenix Tears. Combined with his members' much tougher conditioning, Riser had held the overall advantage in the raiding game. Though the next stage in the games could possibly lead to a shift in favor for both teams. In normal raiding games, the king usually stayed back until the peerage members of both sides began dwindling till their last numbers, then, the king would participate. The kings were considered the most powerful members of the peerage. As the strongest member as well as the most important, kings only participated when needed or the game had reached its climax. In raiding games, kings had to remain active or else all would be lost. And thus, as a final push for victory, Zephyrdor had abandoned the base of operations he used and charged towards Riser. Riser was never one to back down from a challenge, and two left the safety of his temporary headquarters and moved to meet Zephyrdor in battle. Continuing their glaring match, Hilda and Keisha ignored the words of both their kings and focused on each other. Sharing some snarky remarks followed by more glares, both queens held no interest in the questioning stares sent their way. Stemming from the competitive nature that had lingered in their days under the teachings of the Abaddon clan, either of the two had forgotten the events to this meeting. Keisha for one was both confused and albeit pleased when she had found out Hilda had become a servant. The same girl who looked down on the idea for most of her years under the Abaddon clan was now something she despised with such a burning passion. However annoying the jabs Hilda had made when she had become Sararogd queen now became hypocritical, not that it mattered. The desire to see Hilda's expression when she had become a servant had eliminated the slight hatred Keisha felt towards the girl and replaced it with laughter. I thought you would never become a servant, Hildegard, Keisha sneered. Funny you became something you despised all your life, huh? And I thought you were still recovering from the little fight we had. Hilda replied with a smug smile. Keisha frowned as her eyes fell onto her stomach. Though no longer visible, a large cut had once decorated her tender flesh courtesy of Hilda. The feeling of the girl's blade was still fresh and frightening to some degree. Shaking away her thoughts, Keisha gave Hilda a long stare. In all reality, Keisha was rather curious as to why Hilda had decided to join a peerage. Sending Abelard to capture her had resulted in the man's arrest and possible death. From everything Keisha knew of Hilda, becoming someone's servant was something she would avoid at all costs. Turning into a stray devil was a definite possibility for the other Abaddon. So, why exactly did you become Lord Naruto's servant? Keisha asked, her voice lacking the usual hostility. Hilda raised an eyebrow at the tone rather than the question. Keisha had always been what she would consider an enemy. Since they had first met, both Hilda and Keisha held no love for each other. Sharing a civil conversation was quite rare, as most times conversations between the two ended up in full-out brawls. Even so, the question her supposed rival asked did hold some merit. Joining Naruto was unplanned for, but necessary, Hilda began as she too pondered on the question. Thinking of the events transpiring to her reincarnation into Naruto's queen, I only joined him to escape the possibility of being branded a stray devil. There is nothing more to it. Already used to Hilda's cold attitude, Keisha caught hints of something else in Hilda's tone, but accepted the answer with a raised brow nonetheless. Hilda seemed like the type to only become a servant when forced. Though the small hints of uncertainty when delivering the answer did form a counter-argument. When our kings do battle, I will win. You can count on that, Hildegard. Riser won this. Sararog mused thoughtfully. Naruto nodded his head in agreement. Comparing both Riser and Zephyrdor, the two held some similarities that many would consider weaknesses. Brash and prideful, either of the two willingly played smart when their pride were damaged. Easy to anger, nor did it take much to offend them. The two were, in all honesty, too hot-headed for their own good. Even so, differences could be spotted between the two. Riser, for one, was far more controlled than Zephyrdor was in battle. Having dealt with enough frustration from both Naruto's stubborn behavior and Sararog's battle-hungry attitude, Riser's self-control was rather developed in comparison to his opponents. But what really surpassed Zephyrdor was Riser's abilities. Possessing pyrokinesis, aerokinesis, and immortality, Riser's abilities deprived from the legendary phoenixes. Yes, he definitely won this, Naruto replied. And just like the predictions of the two friends, the announcer proclaimed Riser the winner minutes later. Though some boasting was expected, especially from Riser, the sheer arrogance Riser wore on his visage did bring some unease to Naruto. Nevertheless, Naruto buried the unease and sent Riser a smile. Well, are you going to stay for the other games? No, I have more work to do. Congratulate Riser for me, will ya? Nodding his head, Sararog returned his attention onto the field while Naruto walked off with Reinhard following a small distance away and Hilda sending her final glares at Keisha before following the two out. The libraries of Beelzebub Castle held a wealth of knowledge that Naruto had access to. From history to magic, the library had it all. Naruto had never been the type to study. Even as an adult, he had abused the use of clones to read through important documents while he performed the other duties of an Hokage. No longer able to utilize the broken technique known as the shadow clones, Naruto was given the opportunity of studying the material. And that was exactly why Naruto had basically made the library his room. Having slept in the large book-filled room for quite some time, Naruto had adapted to the stiff sleeping positions he was forced into. Thankfully Kushina had left for a small trip with Miss Bale, Sararog's mother, so she could not halter Naruto's studies, even though they held good intentions. Like in his younger years, Naruto had grown accustomed to the life of constant work. As Hokage, plenty of meetings and paperwork was in need of completing, and as the center of the village, Naruto had to do it all. Adding in family as well as public appearances on media, the life of a Hokage was stressful and not as smooth as he had depicted it as during his years as a child. Naruto's activities had definitely turned some heads. More importantly, Ajuka's. The man had been very curious as to what Naruto had been spending days and nights on. The other servants who had brought food and water in had been able to sneak peeks at his work, though not enough to piece together anything significant. Waiting patiently, Ajuka had been expecting Naruto to ask him for help sooner or later. Yet, the plead for help never came. Not the overly dramatic one, nor a simple question. Naruto remained locked in the library developing whatever it was, the only signs of his presence inside the library from the series of crashes followed by the shuffle of feet. Whatever Naruto was practicing inside the closed doors, failure was an obvious companion in the blonde's endeavor. 3 days since the events had began, and 3 days Ajuka's curiosity had been eating him away. The questions that began plaguing Ajuka were beginning to become more and more influential in his actions as the green-haired Satan truly wondered on what his son had been working on. Reinhard and Hilda both had duties of their own. While Hilda had been working alongside some of the servants occasionally, the former abandoned focused on her own training. With intermittent help from Reinhard in her swordplay, Hilda focused mainly on mastering her demonic power. Keisha had been proficient in elemental magic for as long as Hilda could remember. Hilda had no overall strengths in magic. Her main use of her demonic power had been to enhance her physical abilities. It had taken no fool to figure out that the reliance on only physical might had its limits. Though Sararog did contradict the statement, Hilda did not care. Unlike Sararog, who had no access to the Bale clan's infamous ability, Hilda had access to her unique brand of magic. While Keisha preferred quantity over quality, Hilda was a fan of the quality of her magic. The encounter with Keisha had sparked Hilda's determination to grow stronger. Well, most likely to beat Keisha up, though her new desire to grow stronger did influence Reinhard. Reinhard had been working as well. As the newest addition to Naruto's peerage, the former human had lacked any familiarity of the extra strengths the devil's body possessed. An overall increase in his physical condition, Reinhard had been quite pleased to develop his swordsmanship, while both his king and fellow peerage member worked on their own. Though unable to access his true sword, Reinhard had made do with the practice blades Ajuka had some servants buy for him. The sheer idea of a devil wielding a holy sword was simply crazy. Reinhard had thought so as well. Until he had found the touch of reed did not burn his skin as his father had told him. It did spawn a few questions Reinhard had been unable to answer himself, thus leaving both Naruto and Ajuka to ponder over the abnormality. Nevertheless, Reinhard worked hard to continue in his training in the art of the blade. "Naruto, may I come in?" Ajuka asked as he gave another knock on the library door. A faint yes could be heard and Ajuka shoved a single door open. The other side of the extravagant doors had been a complete mess. In comparison to the spotless halls, the library was in far cry of that condition. With books and scrolls scattered everywhere, the chairs and tables that once stood in an organized manner were turned in numerous directions and some were even found in odd locations, such as the wall for example. How Naruto managed to get a chair stuck inside the wall remained a mystery to Ajuka. Unlike many parents whom would have either yelled or punished Naruto, Ajuka merely smiled. Smiled like a complete fool, if anything to go by. The mess Naruto had made reminded Ajuka so much of his younger days and his pursuit towards numerous goals he had set out to accomplish. "Hey, Dad?" Naruto greeted with a wave. "Whatcha doing here?" The word dad had been easier to use on Ajuka. Though he was not Minato Namikaze, Naruto had accepted that he was a completely different person, and thus Minato Namikaze was never his father, Ajuka Beelzebub was. Using in his earlier days in this new body did feel odd. "What are you working on, making such a mess?" Ajuka asked, with a much more controlled smile. "Oh, this." Ajuka watched patiently as Naruto rummaged through the mess before pulling out a crumpled paper. Studying its contents, Ajuka's surprise was obvious in how wide his green eyes became. Written on the paper was the magic circle of a simple teleportation spell, but there were notes, plastering the sides with formulas and calculations of possible ways to tweak the already fast way of travel. From the X's dotting the page, Ajuka could easily differentiate the formulas that had been tested and those that have not. The pride Ajuka felt only grew. When Naruto had been born, the boy was his pride and joy, and to see him inherit his own love for calculations and formulas had been a major uplift to the stress he had been boggled down with at work. A teleportation spell? Why focus on something so simple, son? Ajuka curiously asked, not even removing his eyes from the paper. Well, Naruto began before he chuckled and scratched his head. The reason behind his idea to tweak the teleportation spell was to, in a way, honor Minato. Having mastered the Rasengan, Naruto wished to further carry some part of his former father's legacy with him. And so, tweaking the teleportation spell in order to recreate the Flying Thunder God was a much more achievable goal at the time. I thought it could be used in combat, you know? You remind me so much of your mother. I do? Oh, definitely. Kushina was very unorthodox in our time, always using some of the most unusual spells and techniques in combat. The woman was unpredictable. And it looks like you inherited that little trait of hers. Finishing his words, Ajuka rested a gentle hand on Naruto's hair and ruffled it in a loving manner. It was no lie, Naruto enjoyed the warmth generated from the loving gesture. How about I give you some help? You know, a father and son project? Naruto's smile widened as he gave his confirmation with a nod. Yeah, let's do it. Kushina Astaroth had came home to find a very interesting scene. Inside the damaged and messy library, Ajuka was sleeping against a desk with Naruto snuggled to his side. Blanket draped over the father and son duo, papers were scattered everywhere. Obviously interested in what had caused the mess, Kushina picked up the closest sheet of paper and picked it up. Reading its contents, A smile played on her visage as the jumble of numbers and formulas filled her vision. The paper contained scribbles from both Ajuka and Naruto, most likely calculations that had been proven wrong. The love for calculations Ajuka had seemed to have been inherited by Naruto, and the two were attempting to create something and caused the mess as a result, or Kushina hoped that was how this mess had came into existence. Approaching the two, Kushina quietly moved through the library comparable to a site a tornado had just tore up. Kneeling down on the two, Kushina placed a loving kiss on Ajuka's cheek and another on Naruto's forehead. Pulling the blanket up, Kushina gently covered the two before moving away with her smile still in place. Whatever had happened, she could find out the next morning. For now, she would let them sleep. The father and son bonding time had destroyed the library, but it seemed to have brought the two closer. Euclid Lucifuge stood patiently on top of a graceful castle with a small smile in place. Watching the motionless sky, Euclid's charming eyes turned when the sounds of footsteps became audible. Eyes locking onto the source, Euclid's smile widened as he gave the approaching figure a nod. I'm glad you could join me in Vel. The morning sun pierced a blanket of clouds, shrouding the city of Ko in its warm embrace. With students performing their morning rituals and readying themselves for the school day ahead, Issei Hayato, one of the few males enrolled in Ko Academy, once an all-female school that had turned co-ed 2 years ago, merely groaned. Laying on his bed, the young man lay there, little motivation to get off of the comfortable surface. Mornings like these always made one think. Running a hand through brown hair, Issei's mind wandered. A tired sigh escaped the young man's mouth as he lay there. Issei-kun, wake up! You're going to be late for school. Today is sports day, hurry up! The voice of his mother had been enough to wake Issei from his morning drowsiness. The lack of motivation soon vanished as a new surge of energy pushed Issei right off of his comforting bed with a gleeful smile plastered onto his face. Unlike normal students who smiled at the prospect of competing with one another, Issei's smile only radiated his perverse intentions. It was not a secret Issei Hayato was a pervert. He was a pervert, and he held no shame in expressing it, though it did not help in his ultimate desire to become an harem king, as his perverse tendencies and lack of shame drove girls away, opposite of what he wished for. Even so, he pursued his dream with an unbreakable will. It truly did make one wonder how. Bolting out of his room with clothes in hand, Issei ran right into the bathroom in order to perform his morning rituals with much more energy than moments ago. The gleeful smile he wore never left. Sports day was a day filled with opportunities for the student body as a whole, allowing athletes to compete with one and another in their preferred activity. As for people like Issei the perverts, it was an event filled with pleasantries that made the punishing physical activities durable. Among the group of male perverts, Issei could honestly say the idea of satisfying his perverse mind was a major factor in his newfound motivation. Breakfast is ready, hurry Issei-kun or it will get cold. Donning the male uniform of Ko Academy, Issei bounded to the kitchen with the gleeful smile wider than it had been moments ago. Stealing a glance at the clock located on the wall, a strike of fear found its way into Issei's heart as his eyes bugged and he froze. Already late, Issei had little time for breakfast. Grabbing 2 slices of freshly made toast, Issei ran as fast as he could out the door and into the busy streets. Sprinting through the streets, having already finished one of the 2 slices of toast, Issei had the remaining slice hanging in his mouth. Concentrating solely on running, Issei honestly paid no attention to his surroundings. Quite determined to reach Ko Academy before the events began, the lack of attention had its consequences. Crashing into an unsuspecting individual, Issei grunted in pain as he landed on the hard ground. Losing his other portion of his breakfast, Issei shook off the numbing pain and shook off the stinging sensation that had formed in his head. Being raised by a mother who tolerated no form of disrespect, Issei immediately sprang into action. Opening his eyes and jumping onto his feet, Issei bowed deeply. I'm sorry! I wasn't looking where I was going. I'm sorry for running into you, Issei said, wearing a contrite expression. Don't worry about it. Looking up, Issei glanced at the victim of his careless running and was surprised by what he saw. Garbed in a similar fashion as he was, Issei scanned the all-too-familiar Ko's boy uniform with an albeit curious glance. The difference between the amount of boys and girls attending Ko Academy could easily be described as a 5-to-1 ratio. Having been recently turned into a co-ed school, males in the school was scarce and remembering them were quite easy. Being one of the first few boys to enroll, Issei could easily identify a number of other males, yet this one was completely foreign to him. The blonde hair clearly isolated him from the main pack of males. Only Yudo Kiba had blonde hair, and the stranger was definitely not him. I'm Naruto Uzumaki. The stranger greeted with his hand out. I'm Issei Hayato, Uzumaki-san. Issei replied as he accepted the handshake, albeit hesitantly. Just as the handshake finished, Issei's eyes bugged and realization dawned on him once again. Giving the blonde a frantic wave of his hand, Issei shot off like a bullet. Driven by his perverse mindset, Naruto watched on as the boy seemingly ran for his life. A powerful sacred gear, Naruto thought. Sona Citri, heiress of the Citri clan, sat patiently behind her desk with her fingers laced and a neutral expression in place. Standing ever so loyally beside her was Sona's queen and friend, Tsubaki Shinra. The events of Sports Day were about to begin. With less than half an hour before the first event, Sona waited patiently without an ounce of emotion in her blank mask. Even her usual calculative gaze found no place on her visage. The other members of the student council were out either helping place the final touches in the preparations or were out patrolling for any students misbehaving. In Ko, 2 clubs had been created in order to accommodate the 2 residing devils and their peerages: the Occult Research Club and the Student Council. While Sona had her peerage as members of the Student Council, Rivalry, her friend, used the Occult Research Club as her own disguise. Normally, Sona would have gone out to help out her peerage, but an issue had come up. It was more of an unexpected arrival more than a problem. Kaicho, could Naruto-sama be running late? Tsubaki asked with a glance at her king. Pondering on her words, Sona thought carefully on the words. While Naruto upheld his promises, the matter of timing was questionable. Naruto's inability to turn a blind eye from immoral actions was a probability in his lack of attendance. Playing a major in his life, Sona easily concluded the trait was an obvious weakness in Naruto's character as a whole. The selflessness was a potential danger for him in the future. I believe so, Tsubaki. If he does not show in the next hour, then you shall begin sports day without me, Sona said. Nodding her head in response, Tsubaki returned to her previous stance. Minutes ticked away without much activity between the king and queen. Nearing the climax of the hour, a green magic circle bearing the Astaroth clan emblem shimmered into existence. Followed by a flash of light, Naruto appeared before them with the 2 other members of his peerage standing beside him. The apologetic smile was all Sona needed to answer her question revolving around his tardiness. You're late, Sona said as she sent Naruto a cool glance. Sorry about that, Sona-chan. I had the pleasure of meeting Ria's candidate on the way here, Naruto replied. Is that so? Tell me, Naruto, what do you think of Issei Haidu? Placing himself on one of the comfortable seats facing Sona, Naruto pondered on the words with a thoughtful expression. Haidu is quite the interesting character, though he may not show anything special like other possible candidates. Underestimating us underdogs won't end well, Naruto said with a smile. Sona's eyes narrowed as she stared at Naruto carefully. Us? Maintaining his smile, Naruto mentally berated himself for classifying himself with Issei. Though he had been considered a failure in his previous life, in this life, he was what one would consider Sasuke. One filled with large amounts of potential. Generalizing himself, and Issei was obviously strange in Sona's eyes. Telling people about his reincarnation was still a topic he wished to avoid, for now at least. Yes, sus, Naruto said before he scratched his cheek in an embarrassed manner and laughed lightly. You know, some of the nobles are calling me an underdog compared to Sararog and Riser. Accepting his answer with a hesitant nod, Sona studied Naruto once again. His words were true to some degree. While many nobles considered Naruto an underdog due to his lack of experience in the raiding games, Sona highly doubted Naruto was as weak as they had made out. Then again, this issue did not matter at the moment. Shaking away her thoughts, Sona shifted back into business mode and spoke. Naruto, as you may know, Lord Gremory has placed you and your peerage into the as a requirement for all students to join a club. In order for your peerage to operate during your stay here, Lord Gremory has asked me to help you need to establish a club for only members of your peerage to join. Nodding his head in understanding, Naruto thought about the possible clubs he could create. Though the club's name and activities did not matter, Naruto still gave thought into this matter. Thinking of all the hobbies he had enjoyed participating in, a fond smile spread across his visage as his memories of his past life played through his mind. Occupied by his job as Hokage, Naruto enjoyed taking care of a bonsai tree whenever he had the chance. Working on the plan had been enough to draw his mind from the stressful tasks as a Hokage, something the former Uzumaki valued greatly. The gardening club, Naruto declared with another smile. My peerage is going to be known as the gardening club. Raising a few eyebrows with his declaration, Sona merely accepted the answers and quickly jotted down the name and other necessary forms of information in order to create the club before signing her name on the very bottom. Joining clubs were mandatory for students. Creating one was a process that required the approval of both teacher and student council president in order to make room for the club in the budget. But with the wealth of 3 high-class devils, funding high school clubs was like throwing away pocket change. Other than the need for formal papers to be signed, Sona really saw no need to remain in the student council room any longer. Tsubaki, deliver this to the teachers. Of course, Kaicho. Leaving with the paper in hand, Tsubaki bowed to both her king and Naruto before she closed the door behind her. Shifting her gaze to Naruto, Sona released a very rare smile. A smile usually reserved for close friends and family, a smile that had been locked away for far too long. In return, Naruto too gave her a kind smile. It's good to see you again, Naruto. You too, Sona-chan. Come, I shall give you a tour of the school. Rias is most likely in the old school building. I will take you there later. Arriving at Ko Academy with a minute to spare, Issei attempted to regain his breath. Panting heavily, Issei trudged into the school grounds and slowly made his way inside. Though the amount of students left were limited to only a few, the majority still were girls. From the hushed whispers, Issei could still make out the common phrase being thrown around from each conversation. Perverted trio and name graced upon himself and his 2 friends, Matsuda and Motohama, by the female students. Ignoring them, Issei bolted through the doors with whatever energy he had recovered and his eyes went wide with surprise and awe. Strolling through the halls were the two most popular girls in all of Go. Rias Gremory and her friend Akino Himejima. Issei was not the only one who had been staring. Other occupants of the school halls were staring at the girls with a mixture of emotions. From admiration to lust and everything in between was easily visible through the eyes of the students. But what really surprised Issei the most was when he saw the Naruto Uzumaki, the stranger he had met not too long ago, walk through the halls accompanied by the Sona Shirtorai, the student council president and third most popular girl in school. It had seemed Rias and Akino had caught sight of the two as well. Meeting halfway, both groups exchanged a few words hidden from the others as smiles were shared just before the four left. Watching in awe, a number of students began whispering, and soon enough, a wave of hushed whispers enveloped the halls as rumors and theories were exchanged. Shaking away his surprise, Issei felt a hint of envy and anger towards the blonde student. While the negative emotions were illogical and unnecessary, it mattered little to Issei. Walking into his first class period, Issei was immediately brought into a conversation by his two best friends. "Issei, did you see that new pretty boy? He might be worse than Kiba." Matsuda growled. "Yeah. That bastard. He's stealing Akino and Riaswani-sama away from us." Motohama snarled as he shook Issei furiously. While he agreed with everything his friends were saying, Issei was too busy attempting to free himself from the nauseating position rather than replying with a comment of his own. Finally, Motohama stopped his shaking and allowed Issei to escape the torturous hold. "Those damned pretty boys. They're multiplying," Matsuda cried. "Now our quest for Appei will forever be in vain. Oh, how cruel this world is to us, the worshippers of Appei." Sharing cries of their own, Issei and Motohama both enveloped Matsuda in a hug. As the group of perverts stood there crying over the obstacle that had now presented itself in their goals, other occupants of the room had unhealthy glares directed at them. All in all, this was simply another day for the perverted trio. Rias Gremory was a simple girl. Having been influenced by the romantic plots of the anime and manga she enjoyed as a child, her desire to find true love had been heightened by the upcoming marriage with Riser. The entire arranged marriage had been out of her hand. When she was a child, marriage did not seem like such a horrible idea. Riser was not as arrogant and distasteful as he was now, and in all honesty, Rias felt if Riser had remained like he was during their childhood, she would have been fine with the marriage. Though that desire had been left empty and unfulfilled. After experiencing the joys of the raiding games, Riser was keen on enjoying the prestige of his rise to fame in the raiding games. With his arrogance growing, his perverse tendencies that Naruto had found amusing had took a sharp turn. With almost 10 years going by, and each year the relationship between Riser and his two closest friends growing more and more strained by the day, Riser had decided to isolate himself further from his two friends. "Bucho, Sona-sama and Naruto-sama are here to see you," Akino said. Shaking away her negative thoughts, Rias smiled and beckoned for Akino to allow the two in. Her smile had only widened when she saw Naruto. Happy to see a friendly face, Rias stood up from her seat and enveloped the blonde in a hug. The hug had been one between friends, the lack of contact and her stress revolving around the upcoming marriage had been quite tiresome. Seeing Naruto was a way to relieve Rias of that stress. A hug from a friend was just what Rias had needed. "It's nice to see you again, Rias-chan," Naruto said with a bright smile. Nodding her head in agreement, Rias ushered her two friends onto the Victorian-styled couches and beckoned Akino to prepare tea. The unwelcome thoughts of her marriage to Riser had left, leaving Rias with only the fond memories of her time spent with the two friends she had surrounded herself with. That was how the three had spent their time, reminiscing of the joyful moments of their beloved childhood. The perverted trio could be found again, seated on one of the small hills located in the academy with perverse smiles shining brightly across their features. Down below, in a field set up for track and field, the young athletes prepared for their yearly competition. Training with great vigor, the young women were dressed in proper running attire, which was exactly what the perverted trio wished to see. The momentary hatred towards Naruto had ended without much action done on their part, but it did allow them to vent out the frustration of their unchanged status among the female students. A great way to deal with negative emotions was to enjoy the beauty of the female body, as the trio would say. Occupying themselves with what they considered an yearly treat, the three perverts never noticed others approaching their location. "Ah, Issei-san, we meet again." Issei completely froze when he heard that all too familiar voice. Taking a sharp glance at the origins of the voice, Issei immediately found himself staring at the smiling Naruto Uzumaki. The surprise from seeing Naruto had only escalated when he caught sight of two complete strangers standing behind him. In Japan, red and blonde hair was unique. With only a select amount possessing the hair color, Issei could easily deduce the other two strangers as foreigners. The handsome red-haired male did not help in his confidence one bit, though the pretty blonde woman who wore a cold mask of indifference had caused his heart to explode with the wild fantasies of any pervert. Issei was not the only one who had gone through the stages of emotions either. Matsuda and Motohama both were slightly annoyed at both Naruto and Reinhard before they focused solely on Hilda. "Uzumaki-san, it's nice to see you again," haha, Issei replied with a nervous smile. "What are you doing here?" "Oh, just picking a new member for the gardening club," Naruto replied, albeit cheerfully. Acknowledging the annoyance on Hilda's visage, Naruto pursued the end of this conversation. Having Hilda attack the perverts was not going to be an issue Sona or himself wished to deal with. Well, we should go now. See ya around. Watching them go with the odd expression worn on his features, Issei paid no attention to the love-struck gazes Matsuda and Motohama gave the beautiful blonde woman following behind Naruto. Having encountered Naruto twice already, the hot-blooded pervert could distinguish an odd feeling the blonde seemed to possess. Such a foreign feeling Issei could not put into words. The new transfer students were weird alright. How they were able to create a new club in less than an hour was a question Issei did not wish to find the answers for. Maybe it's cause the two pretty boys or her, Issei thought before a perverse smile took its place onto his features and eliminated his confused look he had worn seconds ago. A pervert's ability to brush away troubles in favor of thoughts revolving around the bodies of the opposite was truly impressive. Lord Naruto, was that the young man Lady Rias wished to have joined her peerage? Reinhard asked as the trio made great distance between themselves and the humans that were now a good distance away. Yes, Issei Hydra says he might have a powerful sacred gear. Or even a Longinus if she's luck enough. Naruto replied, if he joins Lady Rias, that is. Surprisingly enough, the response did not come from Naruto, but Hilda herself. Humph, that pervert will of course join the spoiled princess, she snorted in a rather unladylike fashion. Naruto had to agree with Hilda's words. From what little information he knew of Issei so far, it seemed the young man was willing to go a great lengths to achieve his goal. To become a harem king, Naruto really doubted Issei would deny the offer of joining Rias and her peerage. In all honesty, Naruto did not even know if Issei could say no to Rias considering how he seemed to have developed some form of infatuation towards the Gremory heiress. Let's just see the club room before doing anything else. I wanna see what room Sona-chan got for us, Naruto said as he took the lead on their short trip towards the school's less populated wing. The unimpressed gaze Hilda was directing at the student Naruto had been gunning for was quite nerve-wracking, for the student it was. Seated on a comfortable chair before the assumed president of the club, Tatsumi had a nervous smile in place as he looked at the three foreign-looking students that had taken place around the room. While Naruto, the one who held any actual possibility of being Japanese, sat behind a rather large desk, Hilda, a blonde woman with an astonishing figure, leaned back against the wall with her cold eyes boring down at Tatsumi. The last and final member, Reinhard, had been occupying himself with preparing treats for the guest. Tatsumi-san, how would you like to join the gardening club? Naruto asked. Oh well, Uzumaki-san, I don't really want to join a club, Tatsumi began, unsure as to how he was going to explain to another student of his current situation. You see, I need money for your village. Sitting there with a stunned look plastered onto his visage, Tatsumi's wide eyes shakily moved to stare into Naruto's friendly blue orbs. While he found no malice in his eyes, Tatsumi had the right to be suspicious. That amount of information on his personal life was definitely creepy. How the foreigner knew so much was a mystery he wished to solve. The entire secret Tatsumi had erected in order to keep his part-time job out of the school's sight was now on the edges of exposure. How the hell does he know that? Just what the hell is he planning? Tatsumi thought with hints of fear piercing his nervous heart. Oh, don't worry, Tatsumi. I'm not gonna blackmail you or anything, Naruto said with a grin. I just want to know if you want to join the gardening club. Why, you aren't going to tell anyone about my part-time job if I say no, are you? Shaking his head, Naruto decided to take it a step further and ease the young man's worries. I ain't gonna make you join if you don't want to. The answer was obvious. Tatsumi saw no real benefit of joining the gardening club. Giving Naruto the benefit of the doubt, Tatsumi had decided to trust the blonde for now. He only hoped his trust would not cause him issues later in the future. I'm sorry, Uzumaki-san, I can't join the gardening club. Not a problem. Deciding to take his leave, Tatsumi bowed his head in a goodbye before walking out of the room with swift steps. As the door closed behind him, Hilda's expression had said it all. You just let him leave like that? Hilda asked. I'm not going to force him to join if he doesn't want to, Naruto replied. Besides, revealing our identities of being devils is not going to help us in the future either. Snorting, Hilda found a spot on one of the couches set in place inside the moderately sized club room. The damned Astaroth had been acting odd lately. Coming to Japan was one thing, but attending school was another. Using the name Uzumaki in place of Astaroth was another odd behavior Naruto had demonstrated thus far. It truly made both Hilda and Reinhard wonder where the name had came from. Oh, Reinhard, keep an eye on Tatsumi, will ya? With those fallen angels running around, I don't want him killed for having a sacred gear or whatever it is locked inside of him. Tatsumi walked through the streets of Ko with thoughts running amok in his mind. A tired sigh escaped his lips as a hand ran through the choppy brown hair, leaving it in an untamed mess. Uniform crumpled and creased, Tatsumi held the image of a defeated man. Movements slow and heavy, the young man stood out among the sea of moving bodies. Breaking off from the stream of people, Tatsumi raised his tired head and scanned the large park laid out before him. Small letter tucked safely away in his hands, Tatsumi scanned the neat writing on it, and a smile broke through the solemn expression that had once residing his visage. Captivated by the serene environment he now stood in, Tatsumi began wondering. Moving onto a path isolated by a thicket of shrubbery, Tatsumi trekked down the dirt road with newfound wonder. Having shifted his mind to a something other than the thoughts that had been weighing him down, Tatsumi pushed deeper and deeper into the park. Guided by inconsistent rays of sunlight that managed to pierce the blanket of leaves from above, Tatsumi began noticing more and more signs of life. With a number of torn branches and splinters scattered on the ground, the sense of wonder Tatsumi felt only strengthened. His curiosity was enough to push the young man further along the path. Whatever had caused the damage was large, and Tatsumi had to find out what it was exactly. Maybe it's a bear, but what's a bear doing here in a park? Tatsumi thought with a pensive expression. 5 minutes passed with the signs growing further. Seeing more trees with broken branches and deep marks decorating the trunks, Tatsumi only continued on his path. While normal people would have lost the will to proceed, Tatsumi's only had strengthened. Always the curious one, the young man never really understood how much trouble it would cause him. Little expeditions into the forests surrounding the village with his friends Sayo and Iso had been one of the more memorable moments of his life. A village that advanced very slowly in comparison to cities like Tokyo, still upholding traditional lifestyles, Tatsumi could say he missed that way of life. Once surrounded by friends and loved ones. From living in a village where every inhabitant was a friend or acquaintance to the life in a city was quite the change for him. The sound of a growl caught Tatsumi's attention. Positioning himself behind a tree with only his head poking out, Tatsumi waited for something to jump out from the bushes ahead. Minutes passed without any more activity. Accompanied by his pounding heart, Tatsumi slowly tread forward once again, but this time his movements were much more tense. Now fully intended on finding out exactly what was behind the roar's origin, the young man finally made his way behind another tree. Poking his head out, Tatsumi managed to make out the form of a large creature. View obscured by a veil of shadows, Tatsumi slowly made his way forward, avoiding making any noises as he snuck towards the creature. Astaroth! I'll kill you! Stopped by the animalistic voice, a bead of sweat ran freely down Tatsumi's forehead and cascaded onto the dry ground. The surprise that had overcame his body had been enough to force Tatsumi to look at the creature once more. Making out a massive body of barely contained muscles, the young man's widened as he made out more features of the creature. Colossal in size and bipedal, the creature held excessive amounts of muscle on its body that seemed to be bulging. With a mane of unruly black hair, Tatsumi was thankful a small piece of cloth kept the creature's lower body covered. Humph, another pathetic stray. Angered by the words, the creature gave another bellow and charged. Tatsumi looked on in awe as the massive creature moved in speeds no creature of that size should possess. For something half the size of a full-grown tree built with excessively large muscles, Tatsumi never expected something that large to have been able to move so fast. Even though the sudden revelation had surprised Tatsumi, the feminine voice was what truly held his thoughts. The voice was recognizable and seemed familiar. Having heard it once before, Tatsumi was left pondering whom the voice belonged to. How he had found out brought forth a new string of questions. The enraged creature was powerful, or that was what Tatsumi had assumed when he had caught sight of it. With its appearance alone, the immediate assumption had been made. Assuming it was strong, he had been given quite the surprise when the creature he had developed a slight fear of was sent crashing into a number of trees. Imagine the look on Tatsumi's face when he caught sight of the creature's attacker. Standing with her arms crossed and an annoyed expression marring her delicate features was none other than Hilda herself. Still garbed in the co-girl's uniform, Hilda's cold green eyes remained locked on the creature. The glare that Hilda was sending to the creature made Tatsumi flinch. The gaze alone was nerve-wracking. With a mixture of awe and confusion plastered onto his face, Tatsumi watched with wide eyes as Hilda approached the recovering creature. Such a pitiful thing, abandoning your master and taking on such a hideous form. It would be only right to end you, is it not, Stray? Hilda mused as her face remained indifferent. Fuck you, bitch! The creature growled. Go back and service your damn master. Single eye narrowing, Hilda took a few steps back and avoided a punch from the stray devil. Sidestepping another punch, Hilda's graceful movements proved to be too much for the stray devil as its slow and clumsy attacks were doing nothing but damaging the trees surrounding them. Trees were struck and were sent tumbling down onto the ground. Upon contact, a smoke screen of dust fluctuated around the two devils. Limiting the view of Tatsumi and the two fighters, the young schoolboy had decided it was time to leave. Rushing away from the fight with adrenaline pumping through his veins, Tatsumi rested a hand on his pants pocket, hoping to find some comfort in the letter that resided there. Instead of finding comfort, Tatsumi's hand brushed against his empty pockets. A new spark of panic flooded his heart as he scanned his chaotic surroundings desperately. Finally, locating the envelope that had been resting against the trunk of a tree, Tatsumi bolted towards it. Safety thrown out the window, Tatsumi dove towards the letter and swooped it up in a single dive. Smiling in relief, he clutched the letter safely against his chest and ignored the stinging pain that had arose from his back. Having crashed into a tree in the process of the dive, Tatsumi picked himself off of the ground. That was when everything had gone downhill. Tatsumi's blood ran cold when he felt his body being enveloped in a crushing grip. Quickly turning his head around, Tatsumi's fear-ridden eyes only widened as he was brought closer and closer into the creature's mouth. No! I can't die yet! Damn it, no! Damn it! I can't die, not now! Tatsumi thought. Struggling against the hold, Tatsumi used whatever strength he could muster against the creature. Heart pounding with fear, Tatsumi's adrenaline-drenched body still kept at it even though a part of him had already given up. His logical side had already deducted the chance of him escaping were near impossible. Yet he did not waver. Driven by his emotions, Tatsumi continued to push against the tightening grip. "I can't die yet, Ayasu Seo, I just want to see you one last time," Tatsumi muttered. "Damn it!" An explosion of magical energy shimmered into existence and enveloped Tatsumi. Sizzling and snapping against the stray devil's weakening grip, the blinding light continued to burn against the creature's hand. Until finally, Tatsumi was dropped and the stray devil backed away from the human and began shielding his eyes from the light. Tatsumi's desperate cry for survival was the only sound audible, filling the forest with the raw cry of emotions. Left on his knees by the sudden outburst of power, Tatsumi held onto a gray short sword decorated with a chain-link tassel on its handle. Collapsing from exhaustion, a single pulse of life ran through the blade. Reacting quickly, Hilda quickly jumped into action. Raising a palm, a dark green magic circle flickered into existence. Tendrils of black filaments shot out of the magic circle and quickly attached themselves to the stray devil. Enraged growls were ignored as Hilda watched the filaments snake their way around the creature's body until they fully held it in place. Closing her open hand, the filaments went to work. Having surrounded the stray's body, the hundreds of tiny filaments began digging into the stray devil's body. Tearing through skin and muscle, the filaments acted like parasites, burrowing into the victim's body. Strangled cries of both horror and pain filled the air seconds before the filaments escaped the stray's body. Cries now forever silenced, Hilda waved off the magically created filaments and watched as a pool of blood spread wider and wider from the hundreds of small holes that now decorated the stray's body. "Guess Astaroth was right about you. Just what is this thing?" Hilda thought as her calculative eyes locked onto the short sword. Tending to a bonsai tree, Naruto smiled at the plant, carefully trimming its sides with clippers. Alone in the clubroom, the calming silence was pierced by the hum of a magic circle. A flash of light followed by Reinhard's appearance drew Naruto's attention away from the plant and onto his knight. Acknowledging the bow with a nod, Naruto's eyes grew curious as he scanned the noticeable stain of red planted on Reinhard's cheek. "Request for another date?" Naruto asked with his eyebrows still raised and amusement obvious in his voice. "Yes, my lord," Reinhard replied. Seeing the small falter in his polite smile, Naruto released a snort. It was no surprise Reinhard's charms and likable manner attracted many females from a variety of age groups. As a devil, contracts between devil and human were traditional. Asking a favor with a worthy award in return, Reinhard seemed to receive a bulk of summons from females. Captivated by his charms, the demand for him was high. Naruto was honestly not surprised by the dominating number of female contractors Reinhard held. That and Hilda's overwhelming number of males was not much of a surprise either. "My lord, about the surge of power earlier, I fear Lady Hildegard may be in trouble. Have faith in her abilities, Reinhard. I'd hate to see what Hilda would do to both of us if we interfered with her fight." The last part of his sentence was intended to shift the conversation away from the worries both of them held. The intended effect had worked. Reinhard shared a knowing smile with Naruto as the two thought on Hilda's actions she would have taken in order to protect her pride. Though a tinge of worry pierced Naruto's heart, the young Astaroth had confidence in his queen's ability. The stray devil was obviously not the cause of her tardiness. Something as weak as a stray devil held no candle to Hilda and her abilities. Something was delaying her. Now, only if he knew what it was. Before the conversation could continue, an all too familiar magic circle appeared. Ignoring the bright light that followed, Naruto was given quite the shock when he found himself staring at Hilda, whom held an unconscious Tatsumi in her arms. Reinhard jumped right into action, helping the unconscious human out of Hilda's hands. Reinhard gently laid the young man down. While Reinhard tended to Tatsumi, Naruto went to check on Hilda. Spotting no visible wounds, the Astaroth continued to scour the woman for any possible wounds. "Hilda, are you all right?" Naruto asked, concern obvious in his tone. "I'm fine, you should be more worried about the human," Hilda replied. "That sacred gear of his knocked him out." "I thought you had the park secured, Lady Hildegard." "Tatsumi should not have been able to bypass the barrier," Reinhard said. "There was a barrier around the park. The human managed to get by it somehow," Hilda muttered. "I guess this human isn't as worthless as I had thought." "What do you think, Lord Naruto?" Naruto stared at Tatsumi's unconscious figure with narrowed eyes as he turned to the two and replied, "His sacred gear must have helped him. From what I read, sacred gears remain dormant and won't manifest unless called forth directly or activated through pure will. Tatsumi must have been in real danger if his sacred gear activated without him knowing about it. That might be why he had been able to get past Hilda's barrier." Accepting his answer with a shrug, Hilda seated herself on one of the numerous couches and crossed her legs. The look of annoyance she held had not diminished to any degree. Tatsumi's interruption of her hunt was not appreciated. Not only did she have to save him, but drag him to Ko was not pleasant either. "What are we going to do with the human? Since he already activated his sacred gear, I highly doubt the fallen angels will keep away for long. With that much magical energy released when it was activated, I would think the fallen angels are already scrambling to find him. It would be best if we kept him close by. I don't think the fallen angels are brave enough to attack Tatsumi with us around." Receiving no response from Hilda, Naruto turned to Reinhard for his opinion on the matter. Keeping Tatsumi-san safe would be best for now. Accepting the answer with a nod of his head, Naruto turned to the falling sun. Evening slowly turned into night as the final rays of the sun danced across the darkening sky. Tatsumi could feel pain surrounding every inch of his body. As life, every single cell that individually built him as a person were on fire. Indistinguishable pain was all he felt. He wanted to scream, yet no sound could be heard. He wanted to yell, yet not a single word could be formed. He wanted to cry, yet no tears formed in his eyes. Laying there, in the empty shadows, he simply floated there. Accompanied only by his pain, Tatsumi stared lifelessly at the never-ending shadows. Tatsumi wanted to, but his muscles would not listen. Unable to receive the sweet mercy of unconsciousness, he simply laid there surrounded by darkness and accompanied by immeasurable pain. Memories of events prior to his current predicament flooded his mind. From images of his beloved friends and family to the horror he had felt when face to face with the creature. No matter where Tatsumi wished his mind would wander, it always returned to the events prior to falling into unconsciousness. Memories of the surge of power he had felt, power that no longer flowed through his body. Power that he now desperately needed. A single word he had muttered allowed a wave of power to rise. The word was so close, yet so far. Even in the realm of sleep, fear did not leave him. A sinister growl echoed throughout the chasm of emptiness. It resonated from every corner of the shadows. The growl was that of a beast's. Ferocious and evil, the growl alone brought an impending feeling of doom upon Tatsumi. The growl made his skin crawl. Simply hearing it had ignited a flurry of fears he had thought were buried long ago. Images of harsh landscapes holding no signs of life flashed through his mind, playing over and over again in an endless loop. Every image Tatsumi saw, a pair of gleaming red eyes could be seen, eyes filled with insatiable hunger, yearning for blood. The eyes of a beast. The eyes of a predator, no, the eyes of a survivor. In what one could describe as an hypnotic state, Tatsumi's eyes locked onto a pair of gleaming red ones, continuously falling deeper and deeper into a trance. Images of odd locations and people continued to pour into his mind, like a never-ending flow. For what seemed like eternity, the images stopped. Left confused and bewildered by the event, a new revelation dawned upon Tatsumi. Images and memories that had assaulted his mind had given him the answer he had been searching for. Incurso, the word that had escaped him moments ago. Incurso. Issei was not been the only one left in a stupor the next morning. Left flabbergasted by the supposed dream, Tatsumi dragged his steps as he slowly approached the school. Following a steady stream of students, Tatsumi's eyes caught sight of the woman present in his dreams. Walking into the school accompanied by both Naruto and Reinhard, Hilda's mask of cool indifference drew the attention of boys and girls alike. It did not hurt that she was accompanied by other foreign-looking students either. Left staring at her, Tatsumi was brought out of his gaze when a cold glare courtesy of Hilda snapped him right out of it. Shaking off his thoughts and refocusing his weary mind, Tatsumi marched onward, ready to face another day of school. Stealing one last glance at the woman literally from his dreams, Tatsumi followed the crowd of students inside. Struck by a nauseating sting, Tatsumi clutched his head in an attempt to massage the pain away. Taking in a few deep breaths, he managed to successfully quell the pain. The sudden spike of pain had been enough to draw his attention away from Hilda as he attempted to shift his thoughts away from the terrifying dreams. Simply pondering on it brought forth unnecessary fear. Whatever he saw in his dream had been real. Or it seemed to be. Whatever that thing was, he wished to never see it again. Naruto, the fallen angels are growing bolder with each passing day, Sona muttered. Have you encountered any issues on your end? Shaking his head, Naruto took a sip of the tea set before him. Though they may not be giving me any trouble, I don't think they will stay quiet for long. If we don't do something about them, I can guarantee a fight will break out sooner or later. If we deal with them, imagine the political backlash. Though we may control Ko territory, the woods just outside of Ko is where they are staying. That being said, entering the fallen angel territory will not help our cause. The amount of power they will hold over the 72 pillars is too great to ignore. We mustn't be brash about this. Even if the fallen angels do not hold it against us, our clans will lose face. Agreed, if we do anything now, our political images would get tarnished either way. But provoking them to attack may not be such a bad idea. If the fallen angels attack first, we can attack on self-defense, a win-win on our side. Sona sighed at Naruto's words. Though his proposition held merit, the problem laid on how to truly provoke the fallen angels. There was little to no information revolving around the activities of the fallen angels. With no such information, provoking them was not going to be as easy as Naruto had worded it. Unless Naruto knew, which Sona doubted, then they could only bluff to draw out the fallen angels. How are we going to draw them out, Naruto? We don't even know why they are in Ko. Leave that to me, Sona-chan. Waving his hand, Naruto gave Sona one last smile before he vanished in a magic circle. Sighing once again, Sona massaged her temples in a futile attempt to stop the growing headache. Though Naruto's plans had successful outcomes most of the time, Sona was worried about his execution of the plan. Naruto's unorthodox methods had even drew praise from her elder sister, and that was saying something. The same older sister that dressed as a magic girl and came up with some of the most out-of-the-world plans known in devil history. Just thinking about the actions of her elder sister, Sarah Fall, made Sona shudder. In a world led by advancements in science and technology, Tatsumi had brushed off mythologies and any stories associated with such out-of-the-world claims as nothing but a false claim. Mumbo-jumbo if you would. Regrettably, it seemed science was unable to prepare him for this. Having suffered a great deal of mental stress from his tiring dreams, Tatsumi had steeled his mind and decided to confront Hilda about the dream. While he had snippets of doubt plaguing both his mind and heart, Tatsumi resisted the urge to abandon the confrontation and gone through with it. The outcome was surprising to say the least. Given a second invitation to the gardening club, Tatsumi had relented once again. As a way to speak to Hilda about the dreams in which she was a part of plaguing him for the past few nights. He had expected another invitation to join the small numbers, yet it had never came. Instead, Tatsumi was given information he would have blown off as fake and utterly insane if it had not matched his dreams he had been experiencing. Let me get this straight, you guys are devils, Tatsumi said, pointing a finger at Naruto and the other members of the gardening club, whom all gave him conformation in their own way. Do you know how Insa? Leathery wings sprouting from the backs of all three devils, effectively silencing the young man once again. Mouth left agape, Tatsumi shook away his shock and approached the closest devil for further inspection of the wings. Crouching down for a different angle, Tatsumi's wonder had prevented him from seeing the danger he had placed himself in. Giving Hilda's wing a sharp tug, he ran his fingers on the leathery texture with a hand rested upon his chin. Seconds after his close inspection, Hilda had sent a pummeling fist at Tatsumi and sent the poor boy flying into a wall. Permanently engraved onto the stone surface, Tatsumi groaned in pain as he collapsed onto the ground. Do that again, Hilda muttered as her green eyes took on a feral gleam. I'll kill you. Not trusting himself to respond, Tatsumi only groaned as Reinhard helped the human onto his feet. You believe us now? Naruto asked, attempting to quell the amused grin he had plastered onto his face. Nodding his head, Tatsumi groaned again. Reinhard took pity on the poor boy and went to retrieve a potion. Though the potion was not enough to heal an individual in combat situations, healing a human from minor wounds was more than enough. Outclassed by Phoenix Tears, the small healing potions were only good for training and healing minor wounds, nothing serious. Tatsumi seemed to have been given the full effects as his eyes widened in surprise, testing a once sore arm. His eyes only widened further when he received no pain from the movements. How that but my arm it. Come on, Tatsumi. If devils are real, magic has to be real too, you know. How else do you think we take human souls? The last comment caught Tatsumi's attention as he nervously dropped the flask Reinhard had given him and scooted backwards ever so slightly. His actions only brought amusement from the gathered devils. Naruto released a small chuckle and Hilda snorted. Reinhard had able to hold his composure, but a tiny twitch on his lips had signified his amusement. Jokes aside, Tatsumi, you are in danger. A group of fallen angels are after a certain power you possess inside of you. Wait, so you mean my dreams are real? Tatsumi said with a smile of relief. That smile only lasted for a few seconds before realization came crashing down. Plopping onto a couch in defeat, Tatsumi groaned. Why did things like this always happen to him? Having finally lost his consciousness to the embrace of slumber, Tatsumi had hoped for a silent rest. While the kiss of sleep had been effective on the mentally and physically tired young man, Tatsumi had never expected his dreams to take him somewhere else. Finding himself in a frozen tundra, Tatsumi's eyes widened at the harsh and unforgiving conditions of the land. Though the hissing winds carrying blankets of freezing snow pelted against his exposed skin, Tatsumi's focus was never on the raucous cry of the wind. No, his focus was on the pair of gleaming red eyes staring upon him. There they were again, the eerie red eyes. Those familiar eyes had haunted his dreams for a great deal of time, forever engraving his mind of the menacing red eyes filled with hunger. Finally, human, we meet again. The voice was deep and rumbled along the very edges of his mind, resonating from every inch of his surroundings. Tatsumi forced down his own feelings of fear and slowly forced his numb body forward. Moving step by step, Tatsumi fought off the shroud of fear that had shimmered over his body. The thing before him was what had caused him all that trouble. Tatsumi wanted answers. If Naruto couldn't give it to him, it would. I want answers, Tatsumi all but demanded. If the creature had been impressed with his facade, it did not show a sign. Crimson eyes studying him closely, Tatsumi reined in his own shaking fist, hoping to put on an act of bravery, or erase the fear that had been etched into his very own heart. Well? I'm waiting, Tatsumi yelled once again, this time confidence wrapping its comforting hands around his heart. Interesting, whether it is courage or ignorance, we shall see. A pregnant silence filled the air, as the human and the beast engaged in a silent battle of the wills. The harsh climate continued to rage on before them. Minutes passed without either side willing to back down. Tatsumi remained defiant against the animistic eyes. Very well then, a single question, human, use it wisely. The even tone broke the tense silence, ending the battle of the wills. Tatsumi kept his triumphant smile in check and settled for a nod instead, though the small underlayer of respect hidden by the creature's booming voice was not left unnoticed. Pondering on a question, Tatsumi scrunched his features before an idea dawned upon his features. Just what are you? Walking through the gates of Ko Academy, Naruto caught a fleeting glance at the rising sun before being ushered along by the wave of excitable students. Flanked by both members of his oh-so-small peerage, Naruto walked on, heading straight for the classes assigned to him. Ignoring the hushed whispers floating all around him, Naruto and his two companions fought off the giggles and whispers in their own way. While Reinhard smiled pleasantly at the silent compliments, Hilda on the other hand held a scowl of annoyance. Further irritating the young maid, Motohama and Matsuda gleefully watched her walk away, seemingly enjoying the deathly glare they received from the blonde beauty. "Hilda, we don't kill humans," Naruto muttered, as he gave his queen a steadfast glance. The two blondes shared a look before Hilda huffed in compliance, only to have her anger ignited once again by the delightful cries of the two perverts. No matter how perverted they are. Adding the last part as an afterthought, Naruto with the assistance of Reinhard ushered Hilda inside the school building and away from the perverted duo. Making their way through the student-packed halls of Ko, Naruto's eyes rose ever so slightly when they landed on Tatsumi's familiar figure standing a distance away from himself. Giving the human a friendly wave, Naruto noted the human's slight change of posture but decided to no comment on it. "Tatsumi, good to see you," Naruto greeted with a smile. "Uzumaki-sen, we need to talk," Tatsumi said, voice lacking the friendliness and warmth it once held days ago. Nodding his head in compliance, Naruto gestured for the human to lead the way. Though the sudden change in demeanor had raised some flags, Naruto held a spark of interest of the events to transpire. Following the brunette as he led them through the maze of hallways and up numerous flights of stairs, Naruto and his peerage soon found themselves standing upon the roof of one of the many buildings that made up Ko. "Uzumaki-sen, this is about Hydra-sen," Tatsumi began, clearly unsure as to how to begin the conversation. Highlighting his nervousness was the twitch of his fingers followed by the clenching of said fingers. "His girlfriend, she isn't human, is she?" "Oh? What makes you say that, Tatsumi?" Naruto asked. Neither Reinhard nor Hilda showed signs of acknowledgement towards the claim, but their eyes had said it all. The slight rise of their eyebrows and shift of their pupils had been quite enough for Naruto to note their own surprise in the claim. Even so, none of the devils overlooked the slight change in both attitude and posture. Faltering under the gazes, Tatsumi attempted to vocalize his theory with little success. His theory revolved around the idea of his newly acknowledged devil classmates believing the dragon sealed within his body. Though the idea itself held its own form of chaotic irregularity, the fact he even had devils attending his school was placed among the category the dragon sealed within him was. Sacred gear, huh?" Naruto asked cheerfully. "You managed to use one of its abilities already, huh?" "Tatsumi? Well, something along those lines." So that sacred gear of yours is hosting a creature. How did why?" Naruto withheld a small chuckle upon sight of the dumbfounded expression Tatsumi wore upon his visage. Spending a lifetime as the Hokage, Naruto had picked up a few tricks when it came to reading an individual's thoughts. Basing the assumptions out of the target's body language and movements, Naruto had easily been able to decipher Tatsumi's thoughts with little to no effort. The human's lack of concealment in addition to his tired mind had allowed a successful passage towards the realm of answers. Stopping himself, Tatsumi's eyes widened upon spotting the knowing smile Naruto now wore. Soaring through the moonless light, Calawarner basked in the embrace of the frigid air, her skimpy outfit doing little to shield her from the forceful winds. Her visage withheld little emotion, other than the wicked grin eagerly gnawing at her lips. The pieces had been set, and their debut would soon come. The nun lied within the confines of their base of operations, her presence was the only factor left. The building excitement hammered against her chest, driving her further towards the abandoned church minutes away. Seconds from her target, Calawarner felt pain. Unquestionable blood splattered against her outfit, drenching the once beautiful fabric in metallic red. Dark blue eyes landing upon the arrow woven of numerous black filaments, she uttered a whimper of pain before a second arrow pierced the most precious piece of her body. Her beloved wings. The source of her never-ending pride was left punctured and ruined. Body shrouded in a cloak of warmth, Calawarner had little time to react against the surprising attack, leaving her to the mercy of gravity. In seconds she would splatter against the unmoving ground, leaving her as nothing more than a splatter of red. Though the fallen angel was ready for death, fate had other ideas. The black filaments which had pierced her body moments ago unraveled themselves and entangled her busty figure. Escaping the confines of her body had been excruciating. It felt like a colony of ants marching out of her. The filaments attached themselves to others, binding her in a cocoon. "You chose a bad day to fly, fallen angel," the condescending voice of Hilda said. Glaring at the blonde woman standing before her, Calawarner hissed in response. Struggling against the crushing binds holding her a feet above the ground, she pushed the painful stings resonating from her two heavily bound wounds to the back of her mind. Focusing on her capture, Calawarner continued to venomously glare. "Devil!" she hissed. "Once Reinhard finds out of this, she will come for me. Mark my words, devil. When I am free, I shall." Calawarner never finished her sentence. The filaments reveled around her figure hurriedly disentangled themselves. Seconds later, she was left on her knees, no longer held by the binds. In the span of 10 seconds, Calawarner regained her thoughts and the boiling rage exploded. Equipping a hand with a light spear, she growled murderously before charging in blind fury. Flinging the weapon forward, she spawned a second before continuing her charge. Hilda remained still, watching the fallen angels charge like a sentinel. Green eyes unchanged by the screeches of murder filling the silent night. Clasping the handle of her umbrella, the devil flicked her wrist swiftly, allowing the hidden blade to spring from its scabbard and slice the incoming light spear. Shattering the weakly constructed weapon, Hilda took a single step forward and leaned forward. Bringing the blade forward, the blonde devil clashed it against the second light spear within Calwarner's hands, transfixing the weapon. Finishing its journey through the light spear, Hilda's blade found refuge within Calwarner's exposed bosom, sliding through the fallen angel, swiftly ending her life. What a bother, Hilda muttered, flicking the fresh blood off of her precious blade. Just what are you planning, Astaroth, allowing the human to go attack the abandoned church on his own? Do you always think I'm planning something, Hilda? Came the response. Answering the question with a snort, Hilda sheathed her blade and turned towards her fellow blonde. Leaning against the trunk of a tree, Naruto smiled pleasantly at the other blonde without a care in his cheerful eyes. The same eyes that had captured her years ago, binding her upon the very same principles she had looked down upon. And if he dies, he won't. Naruto answered. Reinhard is with him. I am confident he can keep Tatsumi and that pervert alive from a couple of second-rate exorcists. Accepting his response, Hilda noted the forceful change of topic but made no comment of it. The blonde she had accompanied for years remained a mystery to her till this day. The mystery of Naruto Astaroth continued to grow with each passing day, remaining unsolved. The mask of cheerfulness he constantly wore drove many away from the erected barrier. Just what are you hiding? Trekking into the exposed headquarters of the gathered fallen angels, Tatsumi mentally prepared himself for the fight to come. Hands tightly wrapped around the handle of his sacred gear, Tatsumi steeled his nerves and glared at the short sword hosting his newly minted partner. Their daily exchanges had been both insightful and annoying. The creature's continuous pestering combined with his existence within a female-dominated high school had resulted in a number of curious situations. Nevertheless, its offer of power had been seductive. His mentally during the near-death situation involving the stray devil had been frightening. The creature knew just how to use his words. We have to go now. Asia could be in trouble. Issei hissed impatiently. Driving a foot into the ground below, digging through the thin layer of dirt, Issei frowned dangerously as the seconds ticked away without any form of action from the other two. We can't wait any longer, pretty boy. Acknowledging the comment with a smile, Reinhard unsheathed the blade resting beside his hip. Very well then, Issei-san. We shall attack now. Without a second thought, Issei charged. Blowing past the large wooden doors in front of them, the newly reincarnated devil bellowed in rage as he rushed inside. Following the pervert with diverging emotions playing across their visage, both Tatsumi and Reinhard readied their respective blades. Within seconds of their intrusion, a number of exorcists flooded the aging room with light swords in hand. Devil! How dare you enter a location of the Lord? One of the exorcists bellowed in rage. Where's Asia? Issei growled. Tell me, humph, a shitty devil like you won't need to know about that shitty nun. The all too familiar voice rang loud and clear. Reinhard frowned upon the sight of the man standing before him. His fingers tightened around his blade. Reinhard glared at the smiling man. Dancing across his pounding chest, the young swordsman felt an emotion he had long grown for into, anger. If it ain't the little shit I played with a few years ago, Fried cheerfully smiled. The old bastard Valp ain't here to bother with me, so how about I kill you tonight? Astaroth, why are we still here? You said we would meet with someone. Hilda questioned. Her cool green eyes locked upon her king's back. Naruto merely flashed her with a smile as he returned his attention toward the window overlooking the entrance of Ko Academy. Moments after the smile he wore dropped, his blue eyes focusing upon the direction where the abandoned church laid. The climax of the OK was approaching. Not only was Rias and members of her peerage already in the area, but more parties would arrive. You're right, Hilda. We shouldn't keep him waiting. Naruto responded. Let's go. Waving his hand ever so slightly, Naruto drew upon his reserves and focused the epicenter of his magic on the ground beneath him. Seconds later, a forest green magic circle forged itself atop the building's floor. Sharing a nod with Hilda, Naruto once again willed his magic and directed the destination of his magic circle toward a certain energy signature. In a flash of majestic green, the duo were gone. Damn it! Issei, watch out! Tatsumi growled. His voice strained against the struggle for dominance between himself and a priest. Their blades locked in a deadly contest with neither willing to accept defeat. Heeding the warning, Issei ducked under a sword slash and backed away from his attackers. In response to the sudden strike, the red gauntlet attached to his arm surged with might. Using the opportunity to go on the offense, Issei charged. Hoping his sudden response would allow him some form of advantage against his opponents. His gambit had been a success as his fist buried itself in the priest's stomach, sending him sprawling backwards. Focus on yourself, boy. Cursing his mistake, Tatsumi hurriedly countered the incoming blow with a sloppy attempt at a parry. Moments as such in a duel were critical. If the smallest mistake was made, then the duel could end in a loss. And in this very situation, Tatsumi had successfully locked blades with the priest once again, only to find himself being brought back by the sudden display of raw strength. Acknowledging the man's superior strength, the schoolboy drew distance between himself and his opponent. Shit! I need to find a way to break his guard. Any ideas? Tatsumi asked his partner with a frown. Like always, no response. Cursing both himself and the creature, Tatsumi eyed his opponent warily. While he held some form of experience with the blade, the priest's capabilities at this time were far superior. Not only that, but unlike his two companions, his physique was still human, and in comparison to the priest his strength and durability were both lacking. Issei and Reinhard, though, were both gifted with the bodies of devils, allowing them enhanced physical feats. Dodging the would-be fatal swipe of the light sword, Tatsumi defiantly growled in response as he charged with his own blade poised for the kill. Only to receive a bullet in retaliation. Growling at the new wound decorating his shoulder, Tatsumi steeled his resolve and ignored the agonizing burn his flesh suffered, all in favor of capitalizing of the situation. Lunging forward, Tatsumi stretched his arms to their maximum extent and drove the small sword straight through the man's chest, splattering droplets of crimson-red blood across his pale visage. It was in that very moment, when the adrenaline died and his mind had settled, had he realized the life of another man was taken by his hands. She has a charm to her, doesn't she? Naruto mused thoughtfully. Is that why you are so obsessed with her? Under the watchful gaze of the glittering stars, Naruto leaned against a tree with his arms crossed and a neutral expression plastered upon his visage. Hovering by his side, Hilda watched the interaction with hidden interest. The cool night air clung against her skin, spreading a cluster of goosebumps as she stood still with little protection against the frigid air. Though her skin held little love for the chilling air, the maid cared little for her exposure to the cold. What truly captivated her interest was the figure standing a small distance away from them. Even in the dark, she could make out the identity of the mysterious figure. After all, what other devil had green hair? Diodora, what happened? Naruto asked once more, though the steel in his previous tone had subsided, leaving behind a tired voice. You were never like this. Naruto, were you so blind to believe my charade? The newly named Diodora bellowed, his cold eyes burning with fury. Why are you even here? Why are you so invested in the damn nun? She's a member of the angel faction, our enemy. It's more than the nun. Kidnapping her is a mistake, Diodora. That answer had seemingly sparked rage in the other devil. With an eerie roar of defiance, Diodora swiftly raised his palm and charged a shot at Naruto. The mossy green light illuminated the forest as a roaring beam of magic burned the patch of dew-coated grass as it rushed toward Naruto. In the moments before the attack made contact, Naruto retaliated against the attack with a snap of his own fingers. Just as it had appeared, the attack disappeared in seconds following the piercing snap. The sudden disappearance of the attack had brought forth a defining roar of frustration from the enraged air. Like a cat, Diodora sprang from his position and cast a second spell of attack. Before the other devil could solidify his magic into an attack, Naruto snapped his fingers once more. In an instant, the air around Diodora twisted and gleaming spikes of magical energy shot from the very air itself. Piercing through the young heir's exposed skin and entrenching themselves upon the twisted devil, Naruto gave a nod toward Hilda before returning his attention to Diodora. You bastard! How could you do this to me? Diodora screeched in unchained rage. Protecting one of the enemy? Wait until the council hears of this. They'll ruin you. My brother's status as a Satan won't protect you, Diodora. I only wish I could have changed you. Naruto replied in a defeated tone. As he eyed his own uncle, a joyless smile broke from his exterior. But if you attack the church with members of the Angel and Fallen Angel faction in it, then it would be pointless in maintaining the ceasefire. Hilda, go and help Tatsumi and Reinhard. I will tidy things up here, Naruto said as he saw a flicker of hesitation in the blonde beauty's eyes before he gave her a nod. Quickly making her way out of the battlefield, Hilda shot into the cold night air as she made her way towards the abandoned church, leaving Naruto and his uncle alone to their own thoughts. Naruto knew Diodora was still struggling to find some way to escape, or better yet kill him. Though he knew his uncle remained defeated, the deranged bastard would do anything to kill him or escape and claim his prize. What did you think would have happened if you succeeded? Naruto asked as he sat by his fallen uncle gazing up into the dim stars. I would have had her. When I forced her out of Church's embrace, breaking her image as a benevolent sister, faking my injury so she could heal me. She should have been mine, Naruto. And you decided to force your hand. She should have been mine. Diodora roared as his crazed visage twisted into a delirious smile. After he shouted his last words, the man filled the empty night air with his deranged laughter. Sighing, Naruto began strolling away from his uncle, a fury of hate boiling in his heart. Your plan would have failed even if I did not intervene. I have faith Tatsumi would have foiled your plans. If he hadn't found Issei trying to move toward the abandoned church, I wouldn't have intervened. I contacted Dad. He should be here with soon. I'll see you later, Diodora, Naruto said as his wings shot from his back all before he took off into the air. Pathetic. Hilda hissed as she swiftly executed a man who foolishly charged at her. Dodging the slash from another exorcist, the blonde devil swung her blade once more, feeling the familiar sound of metal slicing through flesh. Kicking the falling corpse away, Hilda glared as another exorcist thought it was a good idea to attack her from behind. Hilda-san? Tatsumi muttered as he fought helplessly against his wave of attackers. Reinhard quickly brought his blade down, decapitating a rather large man. Turning to the new arrival, he smiled somewhat as Hilda tore through her enemies, weaving and dodging her foes and slicing them into ribbons when she had the opportunity, as if the blonde was performing a dance of death and the exorcists were her partners. Turning to his next opponent, the mighty knight parried a clumsy blow, pushing his attacker away before slicing the man's throat, frowning somewhat when the gush of blood tainted his pants. "Lady Hildegard, thank you for the assistance," Reinhard said as he approached the blood-soaked blonde, who gave him a rather unladylike grunt. "Tatsumi, are you alright?" "You are well, yeah, I'm fine," the shocked teen muttered before he sighed with a frown etched across his visage. "The killing becomes easier after a while," Hilda offered as she continued forward, pushing past Reinhard, who quickly followed. While she kept her gaze before her, she knew Tatsumi was following them. Perhaps her initial assumption of the boy had been albeit rash. "Astaroth will be here soon. We need to clear out the exorcists before then." "How many are left?" Tatsumi gingerly asked as he looked around the carnage they had brought upon the now dead men. "Many more of them are likely to be underground preparing for the ritual," Reinhard replied. Nodding her head at the observation, the blonde devil swiftly moved down the stairs before stopping by a large door. She could hear the shouts from the exorcists. It seemed the damned pervert was already making his way to the altar. Running inside with Reinhard and Tatsumi flanking her sides, the queen muttered a curse of annoyance as she spotted a sea of exorcists cramming in the distance, occupying the distance between them and the altar. Raising her blade, Hilda charged straight for the closest enemy, beheading him with a swipe of her blade. She was quickly joined by the other two, who helped in cutting down the opposition. "We have to help the pervert, he will die otherwise," Hilda called out as she killed off another exorcist foolish enough to charge at her. Gracefully dodging around her enemies, the maid tightened her grip on the blade before returning to her vigorous assault on the humans. Her merciless attack had been a key factor in the dwindling morale of the enemy. Sparring none in her dance of death, she pushed deeper and deeper into the enemy ranks, efficiently pushing them backwards. "Lady Hildegard, go on ahead, Tatsumi, and I will hold them off," Reinhard shouted aloud, parrying his current enemy. "Yeah, go help Issei," Tatsumi said. "Don't die now, Astaroth will be furious with me if you do," Hilda replied as she jumped into the air, allowing her wings to carry her towards the altar, where a fallen angel proceeded to beat Issei to the ground before returning to her ritual. Sending a flurry of filaments at the fallen angel, she quickly slashed at the angry woman, smiling somewhat as she watched her blade slice through her feathery wing. "You bitch! I'll kill you! How dare you attack me, Reinhard?" she bellowed before forming a light spear in her hands, throwing the weapon straight for Hilda. Dodging the projectile, Hilda dived down and swung her blade at Reinhard's chest. The fallen angel jumped back, avoiding another injury, but Hilda predicted her, dodging her blade as another wave of filaments shot toward her. Without her second wing, Reinhard could not fly or escape her attacks from the air, eliminating her options. The large altar they stood on had edges that led directly to the rocky surface below, making Reinhard's situation infuriating to the power-hungry fallen angel. "Begone, crow!" Hilda commanded with a hiss. Bringing her blade at Reinhard, Hilda smiled coldly as the fallen angel attempted to flee, but her legs remained bound by the filaments she dodged before. Executing the crow in a single swing, the mighty queen turned to the beaten pervert as she sheathed her blade with a hint of annoyance crossing her indifferent visage. "Good job, Hilda," Naruto's voice called out as the maid's king appeared before her with Tatsumi and Reinhard a step behind. Turning to his knight, Naruto gave the redhead a smile of appreciation before giving Tatsumi a nod of approval as well. "You two did great. You're becoming an amazing swordsman with your sacred gear, Tatsumi." "Astaroth the girl," Hilda said as she pointed a finger at the still unconscious girl. "We should bring Ria's pawn back to her first," Naruto replied as he beckoned for Reinhard to carry Issei while he still stared at the girl. "Did she lose her sacred gear?" "No, I stopped the fallen angel before she could extract it." "Then she is alive. Bring her back to Ko." "Naruto, why did you help Issei? You could have caused an incident with that," Ria shouted, rubbing her forehead to fight off the incoming migraine. Naruto had brought Issei back to her home and left him on the couch as they discussed the night's events. The Gremry heiress immediately called Sona for the unorthodox meeting. She knew the entire situation could spark another war if they were not careful. Suddenly attacking a church housing hundreds of exorcists and a few fallen angels would not be good for the political climate between the three biblical factions. "Hear me out, Rias," Naruto said, holding his hands up before she could yell at him some more. Taking a small sip of the tea Akino had brought him before leaving, the blonde cleared his throat. "The situation is an interesting one. At the moment, only two of the three factions are at fault. A group of fallen angels gathering an army of exorcists in our territory? You, one of the two rulers of the Ko territory, found that piece of evidence, and it is within our rights to attack them. Who knows what they were going to do after they extracted the sacred gear? Play their numbers against them?" Sona murmured as she smiled somewhat at the political ingenuity behind Naruto's words. It did look suspicious that a group of fallen angels were gathering an army of exorcists. It was well within their right to stop the little ritual before anything happened. Then a thought entered her mind and the Citri smiled a little more. Planning an attack on a territory commanded by siblings of two of the four great Satans, and the son of one, is a large enough suspicion. Nodding his head with a smile growing on his countenance, the former Hokage used his former experience in politics to help them out of their little predicament that he caused. It was the least he could do. Taking a larger gulp of the tea, the blonde cursed a little as the tea burned his tongue, causing Sona to giggle a little at his antics. Haha, laugh it up, Sona. I'm fine, by the way. Rias? Turning her head to the other two, the red-haired beauty washed away the thoughts of Riser and put a fake smile. Are you thinking about Riser? Naruto asked as he put the cup down, all seriousness returning to his face. In his years as a Kage, he knew when someone was lying. Rias did not have enough experience in faking a smile. He could tell right as her lips quivered upwards. We are supposed to meet in a few days to discuss our marriage. Rias answered, spitting the word marriage out in disgust. Wincing somewhat at the words, Sona pushed her glasses up a little. How far has Issei come? Could he be useful in the raiding game? Shaking her head somewhat, Rias took a sip of tea. He is not experienced enough to fight against Riser. He is still working on his physical strength. Without it, he wouldn't be able to use his sacred gear properly. How did he do against the exorcists and Reinhard? Hilda killed Reinhard. She stopped her before she could extract the sacred gear. Naruto replied, I had some other issues to deal with. Nodding her head in understanding, Sona pondered the situation. Perhaps you could ask Sararag to help train Issei? He's busy with his peerage right now. He said he would be with Tiamat to train his new members. Naruto replied, waving his hand at the statement. He won't be back until a month. Naruto? Can you train Issei? Rias asked, turning her attention to the blonde Astaroth, who shrugged at the statement. I suppose Hilda could use a new sparring partner. Naruto mused. Have him at the gardening club tomorrow morning. The morning sun was bright and unforgiving. Releasing a groan, the blonde king forced himself out of bed with a loud yawn. Wincing at the sunlight dancing across his bed, Naruto grabbed some clothing in his closet and walked in the shower. No matter how much he hated mornings, which was a lot, a warm shower always woke him up. Tossing on the orange t-shirt and black track pants for morning training, the blonde walked downstairs to the kitchen, the sizzle of grease drawing him toward the stove. Morning, Hilda. Naruto greeted as he stole a piece of bacon from the pan. Astaroth, how many times do I have to tell you not to take the food off of the pan? Hilda hissed as she smacked his hand holding the cooked bacon. Watching his king yelp at the sudden attack and drop his bacon in the process, she grinned at his look of disappointment. Good morning, my lord. Reinhard greeted as he took a sip of the orange juice. Yo. Naruto yawned before taking the seat next to the redhead. Pouring himself a cup of juice, the blonde chugged the tall glass before wiping his mouth with a napkin. Hilda, I promised Rias that you would help Issei with some of his training today. I have no intention on helping the pervert. Hilda replied as she placed the finished bacon onto a plate before pushing it to the two. Don't be like that now, you could beat him down as many times as you want. Hearing a knock from the door, Reinhard decided to greet whoever was at the other end. Opening the polished oak door, the knight's brows raised somewhat when he saw Tatsumi on the other end. Tatsumi, good morning. The charming knight greeted. Would you like to come in? Yes, sure. Thanks, Reinhard. Tatsumi replied a bit nervously as he walked into the lavish home with surprise marring his visage. Taking a moment to absorb the sheer magnitude of the house for a second, the human turned to the kitchen where Naruto currently sat in. Naruto, I was wondering if your offer for the gardening club was still open. Oh? Naruto chuckled before smiling at Tatsumi. Of course, would you like to join my peerage? Confirming the question with a nod of his head, the human was instructed to lay down on the polished wooden floor. Raising his hand and allowing a green magic circle to appear in his hands, the blonde devil held a total of 4 pawns in his hand. Circling around Tatsumi's body, the pawns were glowing with magical power, but Naruto's little procedure could not be complete. Normally, if the evil pieces could not reincarnate a person, it was either he or she was a god or he lacked the pieces. 5 pieces? Naruto chuckled as he offered up the ritual another piece to the circle of pawns. A green magic circle then appeared below Tatsumi's body and the blonde began chanting. In the name of Naruto Astaroth, I call to you, Tatsumi. Hear my command, rise once again as my demon servant. Awaken as my pawn. Entering his body in a glowing green light, the pieces soon vanished one by one before Tatsumi's eyes fluttered open. Offering his hand to the waking pawn, Naruto smiled as Tatsumi accepted his hand and stood. Marveling at himself, Tatsumi muttered something under his breath before looking up and smiling at his new master and peerage. This is amazing, Naruto. I feel as if I can lift a mountain. Tatsumi exclaimed, smirking at his newly changed body. You still need to master your new powers, Tatsumi. Our bodies are much more powerful than a human's. You will have to train double as hard if you want to become stronger. Now you are my pawn, I expect great things, Tatsumi. Oh, come on. Issei whimpered. Smirking widely, Hilda sent a kick straight at the pervert's face, knocking him back into the trunk of a tree. Their little training session had lasted for a few hours now, and the blonde beauty enjoyed every second of pummeling the pervert. He had been watching her walk in her exercise shorts, so in all of her benevolence she allowed him a closer look while she beat Issei. While the pervert cried for mercy, she remained attentive of Naruto's instructions. The spoiled princess told him to help train Issei, so she decided to train the pervert by throwing him in a real-life situation. Well, that had been her excuse when Naruto left. Hilda-san, please. Issei pleaded as he winced at his bruised body. Astaroth told me train you in any way I can. Are you not enjoying this? Hilda asked, her chilling tone frightening the reincarnated devil. Watching the one-sided fight for a second later, Naruto turned to the other field where Tatsumi struggled against Reinhard's masterful skills. The new addition to his peerage remained adamant on testing his body out, but against Reinhard the former human could not land a blow. Reinhard's years of experience made him a menace for any new swordsman to duel, especially one who did not master his new body. Tatsumi's agile slashes were incapable of breaking his knight's indomitable defense. The undeniable difference in skill was obvious. Reinhard held Tatsumi back and maintained distance between them, only countering Tatsumi's strikes. The battle then ended when Reinhard disarmed Tatsumi with a dreadful attack on his grip. "A good duel, Tatsumi, you did much better this time," Reinhard said, sheathing his blade. Groaning slightly, Tatsumi picked his sacred gear up and sighed. "I'll get you next time, Reinhard." Before he could approach his peerage, Naruto's attention was taken by a sudden appearance of a magic circle. Appearing from the circle, a beautiful gray-haired woman eyed Naruto. The blonde immediately knew who the new arrival was: Graphia Lucifuge, the underworld's strongest queen and Serzex Lucifer's wife. "Greetings, Lord Astaroth. I am here on behalf of the 4 great Satans. Your presence has been called upon," Graphia said, keeping her blank expression set on Naruto. "If you would come with me." "Right, Reinhard, Tatsumi, I'll be back. Don't slack off now," Naruto called out before waving to his peerage. Before they could even ask about what was happening, Naruto vanished in a teleportation spell made by Graphia. Sharing looks with one and another, Reinhard shook off his minor confusion before turning to Tatsumi. "Let's get some more training done. I'm sure Lord Naruto will inform us once he returns." "Oh, you're right," Tatsumi replied, setting his blade up in a basic stance. Naruto soon arrived in a large room lavishly decorated in the finest materials. He stood facing the end of the room where his father and the 3 other Satans accompanied him. Seated alongside their large oriental thrones, the varied Satans and partial rulers of the underworld shared looks between each other. He could spot the small nod he received from Ajuka and the partial smile Serzex sent him. Falbium Asmodeus, on the other hand, remained asleep, while to others he seemed awake and attentive. The blonde had been around the lazy bastard enough to see otherwise. Seraphal, well, she remained bubbly as ever in the circumstance. "Naruto Astaroth, do you know why you are here?" Serzex's booming voice questioned him. "No, Lord Lucifer," Naruto responded. "We have received an account on the situation which occurred in Ko. We summoned you here to ask you of your account of the situation," Ajuka said, joining in the conversation. "The fallen angels were amassing an army in the abandoned church. I never intended on facing them head-on, but circumstances forced my hand. Rias' new pawn, Issei Hydra, was intending on storming the base by himself. The fallen angel Reinhard had captured his friend, Asia Argento, and he planned on rescuing her. Though you acted with well intentions, your actions were not only rash, but it could have sparked a second great war." Falbium continued, for the first time releasing a small yawn, much to the annoyance of Seraphal. Though his eyes still held hints of drowsiness, the lazy Satan had a new intensity in his dark eyes. Wincing a little at Falbium's harsh stare, the blonde kept his eyes leveled with the Satan, unwilling to back down from the exchange. "My actions were completely justified. If they extracted the sacred gear from the girl, then they would have had another weapon to use against us. You already gave them apolitical ammunition," Ajuka said, entangling his fingers together. "And they gave us some as well. They were amassing an army of exorcists who were completely loyal to Reinhard. It would have been full-blown war if they proceeded with their plans. Why would a fallen angel bring so many of her followers to Ko to extract a single sacred gear? If there were not other intentions behind that, then you may punish me. What do you think a reasonable punishment would be?" "Naruto?" Seraphal asked, a glimmer of interest in her playful eyes. "Perhaps a month in the dungeons? Or a week in Cocytus?" Serzex mused offhandedly, a glimmer of amusement in his voice. Chuckling a little at the suggestions, Naruto gave his father a look before the green-haired Satan smiled a little, though he could see the hesitation behind it. Frowning at the sudden shift in Ajuka's mood, Naruto opened his mouth to ask the question, but Serzex, as if reading his mind, answered. "Naruto, right now the Astaroth clan is in a bad position with the other clans. As of the moment, a majority of the remaining clans have been arguing whether or not the Astaroth name shall remain a member of the 72 Pillars. Diodora's pastime has some of the clans worried about a political disaster with the angel," Serzex said, sighing with a frown adorning his visage. "The underworld is still rebuilding, and we cannot afford another war. Our birth rates have been declining for some time now. A large-scale war could wipe out the entire population of devils. Even if we declare the attack on the church was within our rights, it does not hide Diodora's crimes. At the moment, we and the clans are going to meet in order to decide his fate. But they could punish you for your actions against the fallen angels. A majority of them have decided to recall you to the underworld in case the angels demanded justice. Since you were the one to capture Diodora, you are a key figure in the issue. At the moment, we have scheduled a meeting with the Archangel Michael to discuss the matter at hand," Ajuka said, massaging his head before sighing in defeat. "We need you and your peerage here until the issues have subsided. Until then, I need you to return home. We have a meeting with the other clans soon to discuss a punishment for Diodora," Falbium said before waving him away. "Go home, Naruto. I will send a messenger to bring your peerage here." Bowing his head to the Satans, Naruto gave Ajuka a small hesitant smile before walking out. Strolling into the massive castle he once called home, Naruto was greeted by an army of servants before walking into the luxurious castle. Standing atop the twin stairs leading to the second floor, Kushina glared at Naruto, her hands planted on her hips and an angry expression crossing her countenance. Strolling down the stairs, Kushina walked through the servants and approached Naruto, who smiled nervously at his mother. Finally reaching him, the red-haired woman studied him carefully. "You brat, what the hell were you thinking?" Kushina bellowed before smacking him cleanly across the head. Yelping at the sudden attack, Naruto rubbed his stinging head with a wince on his face. However, he never got to answer his mother, as she wrapped her arms around him and brought him into a comforting hug. "When your father came home and told me about what you did, I was so worried. Never do that again, you hear me?" "I'm sorry, Mom. I just had to help my peerage. I couldn't let them fight the exorcists on their own. What sort of king would I be if I let them do it alone?" Naruto said before smiling up at his mother. "You don't have to always worry about me so much. A mother always worries about her child, no matter what." Kushina replied before releasing her embrace, returning the smile. "Now, are you hungry? I ate breakfast a little while ago." Naruto replied, enjoying the time he spent with his mother. Though he never had the opportunity to spend time with his original mother, he enjoyed her company, smiling fondly at her worry. "Go clean yourself off, you smell horrible." Alright. Making his way to the large hallway on the second floor, Naruto got out of sight before teleporting into his room. His mother hated people using magic inside of the house. From the numerous amount of times Ajuka and Naruto caused destructive explosions, made the woman put her foot down on the matter of magic within the confines of her home. Appearing in his organized room, the blonde walked over to a second door connecting his large room to a luxurious restroom. Turning on the shower and stripping away his clothes, the blonde tossed his dirty clothing in a bin for the maids to clean before entering the shower. Walking out or the warm shower, Naruto walked back into his room and walked straight to the closet on the other end. Grabbing a simple orange shirt and pants, the blonde quickly put on the clothes before walking out of his room. Teleporting back into the hallway outside of the dining hall, Naruto walked into the massive room filled with voices. Spotting his peerage all seated by his mother at the head, he waved to them before taking a seat by Hilda. "Naruto-san, this is amazing," Tatsumi said as he exclaimed the beauty of the room. Having been unexposed to that level of luxury before, the pawn marveled at the decorations withal. "You are all welcome to stay as long as you want," Kushina said before giving the group a smile before turning to Naruto. "I have to visit your father for some business, don't destroy the house while I'm gone." Giving Naruto a kiss on the cheek, Kushina walked away, bidding the group farewell in turn. Once she had left, Naruto took the seat his mother previously occupied and looked around at his peerage. As Falbium promised, they were here surprisingly faster than he had predicted, but nevertheless, he felt a little relief when they were around. "Astaroth, why did the Satan summon you here?" Hilda asked. "They want me present as a witness for Diodora's plan. At the moment he is locked away in a dungeon. I have to accompany the group for the diplomatic meeting with the angels," Naruto replied before running a hand through his blonde hair. "The political backlash from the incident with Diodora has put the Astaroth in a peculiar situation. We may or may not lose our status as one of the 72 pillars. Will the punishment for Diodora extend to the other Astaroths?" Reinhard asked as his blue eyes narrowed a little. "I have no idea. The Satans are discussing the current issue with the other clans to find a suitable punishment for Diodora," Naruto replied. He knew his clan had enemies, and their sudden image as enemies to the peace the underworld currently held was preposterous. Nevertheless, the bad end of politics would either send his family into the ranks of the extra clans or perhaps retain their status as dukes. "Let's move on to another topic. How was your training?" "The messenger did not allow us to finish, Lord Naruto," Reinhard replied, albeit disappointed in not having been able to practice further with his bladder. "How did Tatsumi do, Reinhard?" "He did well for a newly reincarnated devil. He has great potential." Nodding his head, Naruto turned to Tatsumi and said, "That's great to hear, I'm glad. Reinhard-san is just a good teacher." Tatsumi replied, a bit sheepish at the praise sent his way. "That reminds me, how about a little spar, Reinhard?" Naruto asked as he rolled his shoulder and smirked. "I haven't fought a proper opponent since Serorg." "What do you say? Are you ready, Lord Naruto?" "I will not hold back," Reinhard declared as he unsheathed his blade, eyeing the smiling Naruto, watching for any move. "Yash!" Naruto shouted before charging straight for his knight. Glowing in an aura of white, Naruto pushed straight for Reinhard. Sending a punch at his opponent, Naruto felt his shrouded fist clash against the steel blade Reinhard used to stop the attack. Producing more force in his punch, the blonde sent Reinhard back a little before his knight retaliated with a slash from his blade. However, his blade remained ineffective. Once it clashed against Naruto's waiting hands, he added enough pressure to shatter the steel blade, sending metallic shards into the ground. A regular steel sword? "I'm insulted." Punching at Reinhard once more, Naruto found his sudden strike blocked by his knight's forearm. Having kept his king's punch from connecting, Reinhard struck his master with his own fist. Slamming into Naruto's exposed stomach, Reinhard grunted as his punch remained unmatched by Naruto's protective aura. Using the small moment of distraction, Naruto brought his knight into a quick body lock. But, as always, Reinhard had a plan. Ducking and stretching his arms, he slipped out of Naruto's grasp and jumped backwards before placing a hand on his blade. "I suppose I can't hold back against you, my lord," Reinhard said before pulling his blade free of its scabbard and readied the mighty weapon for another clash against the smiling Naruto. Steadying Reed, the knight charged, swinging his blade in a downwards motion at Naruto's chest. Catching the blade with his left wrist, Naruto winced somewhat at the impact before channeling more of his magic around his body. So you decided to use Reed now, eh? Naruto chuckled as he smashed his fist against Reinhard. His fist once again clashed with Reinhard's blade, yet, Reed remained unwavering against his physical prowess. Drawing his leg backward, Naruto kicked at Reinhard's exposed stomach, but his attack remained blocked by the blade. Taking in a breath and releasing it, Naruto smiled before releasing the weights he had placed on his body. Feeling the familiar freedom in his limbs, the blonde charged straight for Reinhard, this time exceedingly faster than before. Appearing behind the established swordsman, Naruto punched at his opponent. Jumping away from the attack this time, Reinhard watched as Naruto's fist destroyed the patch of grass he previously stood on. Wincing a little at the power behind Naruto's punch, Reinhard thanked the heavens for his blessings and readied Reed. Spectators, what kind of monster is Naruto-san? Tatsumi murmured, watching the sudden display of physical strength with amazement. Watching the smiling student creating a crater from a single misdirected punch only made him more curious about the true power of the devils. Turning to Hilda, the newly reincarnated devil, the swordsman spotted the blonde woman watching the battle with a calculative gaze. Astaroth has always been powerful. From my time with him, he always trained himself either physically or with magic. Hilda replied as she watched Reinhard surrounded himself with his own power before charging at Naruto. She knew the blonde ranked as the strongest compared to the many other young devils, but to find out the full extent of her king made her much more curious about his hidden secrets. Reinhard-san is amazing too, he is keeping up with Naruto-san. Tatsumi said in awe. The display of power was remarkable. To think the two would be so strong was simply staggering. Naruto versus Reinhard. Digging his feet into the earth, Naruto slowed himself from crashing into the sea of trees only a few inches away. Silently groaning at the condition of his clothing, Naruto walked forward, stretching himself slightly before charging right in. Reinhard sent him flying when he sent a slash of magical energy at him. The blade he wielded truly made him possibly the strongest knight among all of the reincarnated devils. Added with his unnatural talent for swordsmanship and his unmatched magical resistance, he could possibly be a Satan if he wanted to. In his current physical state, he couldn't take much more contact with the blade, considering it was a holy sword made his resistance to its magic weaker than he wanted. If he was back in his prime, he could have fought Reinhard well, everything, even Kurama if the situation called for it. I'm not out yet, Reinhard, Naruto said before running at his opponent. He did not take long when he appeared a foot away from his friend, punched with all of his might at his friend, forcing the knight to block the attack with his blade. This time, rather than stopping the attack, Reinhard was sent crashing into the ground. The red head was astoundingly powerful, making him bring out his Tuki. Having been training alongside Sararog for years in addition to his own physical conditioning, he had gained access to Tuki, a senjutsu technique which required the user to be in life force. Though it was not as powerful as his own form of senjutsu, it was better than nothing. Recovering from his collision course with the ground, Reinhard charged once again, but this time re-channeled the holy magic situated within the blade and swung, sending a powerful wave of magical energy at Naruto, who rather than dodging flared his own magic and punched the attack. Smashing the attack, Naruto's eyes widened when an explosion encompassed him and his surrounding area. The sudden explosive flash of magic then died down a moment after, and Reinhard ran toward the crater he had created. Brushing the dust off of his pants, Naruto walked out of the large hole before waving to his knight. Good move, Naruto said as he smiled at his knight. Thank you, my lord, Reinhard replied, accepting the praise with a smile of his own. You were amazing out there. The fact you managed to get the better of one of my blessings. We sure did some damage on the field, huh? Naruto chuckled before channeling his magic once again, restoring some of the craters with dirt. It would take hours of work to fully return the field to its former glory. Lord Naruto, you have a guest, a maid quickly said as she bowed before Naruto, and his peerage. Her flustered voice did not escape Naruto before the young lord smiled in thanks. Who may my guest be? Naruto asked. It's Lord Zekrom, my lord, she stuttered out, still flustered by seeing the most influential devil in existence waiting patiently for the young lord of the castle. Where is he now? In your study? Nodding his head and quickly thanking the maid, Naruto turned to Hilda, who understood immediately. Vanishing in a teleportation spell, the maid-turned queen returned a moment later, fresh clothing in hand. Greeting the original Bale in battle-torn clothing wasn't exactly a good idea. Putting the clothes on, Naruto used a quick teleportation spell to his study before taking a deep breath. Here we go, Naruto murmured to himself, pushing the polished doors open, revealing his large study with a tall man studying the books resting in his bookcase. Catching the man's attention by his sudden arrival, Naruto approached the aging man before offering a hand. Lord Bale, a pleasure. You must be Naruto then, the pleasure is mine, Zekrom greeted with a polite smile. Taking a seat on the offered chair, the old Bale studied the boy seated before him very carefully. I have come to speak with you on the issue regarding your family's current predicament. Allowing the older man to speak, Naruto remained quiet, beckoning for Zekrom to speak. during the meeting with the heads of remaining pillar clans we received a very interesting piece of information from the warden of the prison of Lucifad. Apparently they discovered Diodora had ties to the Quaz Brigade. A very peculiar piece of information, is it not? What do you want, Lord Bale? Naruto asked, his eyes now hardened. Peace. The situation involving Diodora has divided alliances and clans alike. If the bad blood continues, it could lead to much harsher consequences. Zekrom said, that is why I need to finish Diodora's trial and punish him without causing more tension between your clan's supporters and enemies. Before then, I wish for you to distract the public and align the Astaroth name in positive light. Mend the Astaroth name? Correct. And if you do, I shall publicly support the Astaroth clan. Why help us, Lord Bale? I wish to mend the civil disputes before any harm can come to the underworld. How would you have me fix the issue? Take a position among the top 10 in the rating games. Humph, why are we here again, Astaroth? Hilda hissed in minor annoyance, eyeing the loud arena with displeasure in her visible green eye. They were currently watching a rating game between Bediza Abaddon and Ruvel Phoenix. They were dueling it out in a standard rating game, yet, to her battle-hardened eyes she knew Ruvel outskilled Bediz, but somehow the slimy bastard was weaseling his way into an advantage. Bediz's power felt albeit odd. He sent blast after blast of magical power at the grunting Phoenix, no doubt realizing the futility of his current situation. Naruto had been adamant on them studying the scheduled rating game to gather some information on Bediz. Now, Hilda, no need to be so impatient. Naruto chided as he flashed her a smile before returning to the little scuffle a second later. He had a little talk with his dad some time ago. Their discussion revolved around rating games and the politics behind the underworld's favorite pastime. Though he expected a much more interesting match, he knew Bediz was overwhelming Ruvel with magic Naruto never knew the Abaddon had. It was only a matter of time now before Ruvel lost, he just knew it. Lord Abaddon is quite impressive, Reinhard commented with a polite smile, studying the exchange between the two opposing kings. Bringing a hand toward Reed, the red-haired knight sighed in disappointment when the blade refused to be drawn, indicating Bediz's inferiority to Naruto in general. In a way, scaling the power between them, even he was strong, it seemed Reed could not be drawn. The winner of this rating game is Lord Bediza Abaddon with the elimination of Lord Ruvel Phoenix, the announcer said as the crowd roared with approval. His speech did not end there, but Naruto tuned him out without a second warning, ignoring the romanticized description of the rating game. Let's go, Naruto said as he began walking away. He had seen enough. Releasing a small groan, Naruto took a seat down on the leather couch overlooking the crackling fireplace. It had been a long day since he studied the rating game between Bediza Abaddon and Ruvel Phoenix. The young Astaroth was tasked by his father to help with some family issues. Right now, all he wanted to do was sit down, enjoy his peace and quiet. Chuckling to himself, Naruto smiled brightly at the photo album his mother treasured to no end. He could not make out any details of his past, but the pictures Kushina kept helped a great deal. Your tea, Astaroth, Hilda said as she placed the hot tea on the coffee table before plopping down next to her fellow blonde. Thank you, Hilda, Naruto replied before he closed the large leather-bound album and gripped the teacup as his eyes remained glued on the warm fire. Though Hilda would never admit it, she enjoyed the comforting silence with Naruto as her company. It was a few simple memories in her past she actually remained attached to. Taking a sip of the warm tea, Naruto almost chuckled aloud. Who would have thought he of all people who'd be content with drinking tea by the fireplace? Where are the others? Reinhard is showing Tatsumi the rest of the city. They won't be back until later. He seemed happy to be able to explore. Agree, as Hilda replied with a small wave of her hand before sighing a little. When are we going to challenge Abandon? Not yet. Right now all we can do is get Tatsumi ready for an actual battle. He is still sorely lacking in any experience, Naruto answered, running a hand through his hair. Lowering the cup, Naruto turned to the girl seated beside him reading away at a leather-bound novel. However, he could not return to his tea as a crackle of boots stomping against the stone hallway filled the air. A moment later, a series of loud, frantic knocks came from the double doors. Standing up, he opened the door and a butler panted aloud. Lord Naruto, ha! There is trouble in the town square. Lord Reinhard and Lord Tatsumi are in trouble. I came to tell you as soon as I could, the butler said, coughing harshly after finishing his sentence. Hilda? Naruto asked, receiving a nod from his queen. Forming a magic circle beneath them, Naruto quickly transported them to the area of the scuffle. Biting his lips in vexation, Naruto watched as Tatsumi and another devil argued at the center of a crowd with Reinhard frantically trying to break it up. Rushing to Reinhard's side, Naruto planted a hand on Tatsumi's shoulder and dragged him away from the man. Marius Nibirius, a longtime hater of the Astaroth name, smirked triumphantly as he spied Naruto push Tatsumi away from him. Why, if it isn't Naruto Astaroth, a pleasure, as always, young lord, Marius said, his honeyed words masking the hint of superiority behind them. Taking a step forward and showing off the hideous red mark on his right cheek, he continued, Your servant attacked me when I merely minded my business in your family's territory. It seems you must discipline your dog, or shall I, Tatsumi, apologize? Naruto hissed, much to the young man's displeasure. Standing tall, Tatsumi responded with a fiery passion behind his sharp words. But Naruto-san, this bastard was groping the women here. He deserved it. Muttering incoherently to himself, Naruto put on another false smile and turned to Marius as he lowered his head somewhat. Lord Nibirius, I apologize for your inconvenience. My pawn is not properly trained as a devil at the moment. Could you find it to grace him with your benevolence, and spare him? It seems you have misunderstood, child. Your pawn struck me. I am a high-class devil, and he is merely a lowly servant not even worthy of gazing upon my presence. Such crimes are punishable by death. Accusing someone such as I of a crime is unimaginable. If I do not have your pawn's head, then I shall speak with the council personally. Then allow me to apologize on his behalf. No! Marius bellowed as his visage twisted into one of a monster's and took a step closer. Allowing a sadistic tone overwhelm his voice, the Lord said his words with the utmost importance. I am asking for his head, child, unless you would pay for his crimes. What do you want? Get on your knees and bow. I am not a forgiving man. Bow right now or your pawn dies. Fighting off his anger, Naruto planted his knees on the unwelcoming cold floor, much to the surprise of the gathered viewers. Lowering his head hesitantly, he almost had his head against the ground when Marius' dirty boot struck his head, forcing him down. Pressing down with all of his strength, the older man twisted his boot against the blonde's head, unwilling to let go. Hearing the gasps, Naruto continued to remain there, allowing the bastard to do as he pleased. Tatsumi had made a mistake, but as his king he needed to accept the consequences or else his pawn would die. Such was the hellish world known as politics of the devils. As a low-class devil, Tatsumi could not do anything against a high-class devil. Blood mattered most in the underworld. Compared to a pure-blooded devil, he would not win in a trial, basically allowing Marius to do what he wished to. The ground suits you, boy. Marius hissed before kicking Naruto's exposed cheek, sending the blonde recoiling at the blow. Walking toward the still furious Naruto, he grasped his hair and pulled him to eye level. You're lucky I don't kill you here. Next time put a leash on your dog, Astaroth. Walking into the crowd with a pleasant smile plastered on his visage, the bastard vanished soon enough. Rushing to his side, Hilda and Reinhard helped Naruto to his feet, while Hilda tended to the bruise growing on his cheek. Standing to the side, head lowered to the ground, Tatsumi gingerly approached Naruto as he refused to look his king in the eyes. Scowling angrily at Tatsumi, Hilda shifted Naruto for a moment before casting a teleportation, consuming the entire Astaroth peerage. You shouldn't have done that, Hilda muttered as she held the cold packet towards Naruto's bruised cheek, her scowl still etched across her gentle features. After returning to the castle, she turned her furiously on Tatsumi. Though she never showed it, a part of her cared for Naruto, and seeing him humiliated like that enraged her to no end. Placing a hand on Naruto's other cheek, the young woman pulled her hand back before collapsing on the couch in an angry huff, still fury over the situation. Why did you have to help him? Tossing the packet on the table, Naruto leaned further into the leather couch, sighing in the process. He's a friend, Hilda. Once I reincarnated him, I took full responsibility of his actions. I can't exactly let someone like that bastard kill him. You know I consider everyone in my peerage a friend. I will do everything I can for my friends. Rolling her eyes and releasing a small sigh of defeat, Hilda turned her gaze towards the crackling fire as a knock filled the room. Shuffling into the room with guilt obvious on his nervous expression, Tatsumi awkwardly approached the two as he remained fearful of looking his king directly in the eyes. The scowl of annoyance Hilda was looking at him with did not help his nervousness either, until Naruto coughed slightly and smiled. Tatsumi, how are your wounds? Naruto asked, genuine concern seeping from his voice. I am alright, Naruto-san. I'm sorry to have caused you so much trouble, Tatsumi shouted before bowing his head, a sign of respect. After watching his king humiliated by that fucking bastard, he could not bear the thought of anyone being treated like that for his sake. It pained him to see Marius plant his boot on Naruto's head while twisting the dirted bottom. It enraged him to no end. It's fine, Tatsumi. I should have taught you more about the underworld. Don't blame yourself, Naruto replied, offering him a reassuring smile before he sighed once again and turned to the fire. Devil society is largely based on blood. The ones with pure blood will be considered better. Even our politics and traditions are connected to blood. If you are a low-class devil, many nobles will look down on you simply for your impure blood. I wasn't your fault. If anyone is to blame, it would be me. Don't say that, Naruto-san. I am grateful for what you did for me. If it weren't for you, Hilda-san, and Reinhard-san, I would have died that day. No need to worry too much about it, Tatsumi. Now, get some sleep. We can talk more in the morning. Nodding his head before leaving, Naruto's fear spiked to a whole new level when he heard the booming shouts of his mother. Kushina stormed the halls, sprinting to the library with her red hair flailing around in tangles and a furious expression plastered on her normally gentle features. Kicking the doors open with a display of pure strength, the doting mother threw herself on Naruto as she held him tight, refusing to let him go. Surprised by the display of affection, Naruto released a mental sigh of relief before Kushina released him, and an unchained furiously filled her visage. What the hell were you thinking? You could have been seriously hurt for that stunt, Naruto. How many times did I tell you not to do anything stupid? I leave you for a few hours and you manage to get into so much trouble. Kushina ranted as she shook her son, demanding answers. You are in so much trouble, young man. Do you hear me? Once your father returns, we will decide on a proper punishment for you. Mom, I couldn't let him kill Tatsumi. The bastard wanted to execute him, Naruto replied, his gentle words creating a sigh of defeat from his emotionally drained mother. Naruto! Ajuka called out as he entered the library, casting his worried expression on his son and wife. Approaching them and crushing both in a stiff hug, the Satan held his small family, whispers soothing words to the two. Finally, releasing his grip, Ajuka gave his son a pained smile as he took a step back to give the blonde firecracker some space. Naruto, what were you thinking? Kneeling in front of another devil like that? You better start explaining. Are you sure, Lord Naruto? Lord Ajuka specifically said not to leave the Beelzebub castle. Reinhard asked as he followed behind his blonde king, watching their surroundings carefully. They were walking through an unkept road with a sea of trees surrounding them. Growing shrubbery were growing in random directions, causing delay to the group of devils. After Ajuka chewed Naruto out, the Satan gave his son a proud smile and retreated to his study, stressing Naruto being inside the castle at all times. It's fine, Reinhard. We do need a break from that mess. I thought spending the day outside in the familiar forest would help get rid of that stress. Naruto replied, waving off the concern with a shrug. Turning to the others, Naruto specifically focused on Tatsumi. Tatsumi, this is the familiar forest. It has hundreds of different species of creatures we devils can form a contract with, and they will help us with just about anything in the future. Now, we have to find a familiar suited for you, so I requested Dad reserve the entire forest for a day. Wow, how many creatures are there? Tatsumi questioned as he looked around the never-ending forest with amazement. With so many possibilities, he could not contain his excitement at the possibility of obtaining a familiar. Wait, does it mean all of you have familiars as well? Yes, it is a basic requirement for any devil no matter their stature. Reinhard explained as he opened his palm, and a small summoning spell formed, and a small blue dragon fitting perfectly in Reinhard's palm appeared a moment later, releasing a small yawn. Like many other Western dragons before him, the blizzard dragon had leathery bat-like wings and hardened scales. This is my familiar here, Sirid. My familiar is named AK Baba. Hilda said before turning her head away, not even bothering to show Tatsumi her familiar. Too busy scouting the forest for the damned familiar master, the damn bastard gave her the creeps. As if her haunting thoughts were answered by whatever deity would listen, laughing loudly at a large branch, Satoji looked at the gathered devils with a smirk adorning his less than likable features. Ahahaha. It seems you have returned, Lord Naruto. Oh? What's this? Hiltan. Satoji bellowed as he launched himself at the maid, only to receive a kick to the face, sending him back a few meters, forcing him to land roughly against a tree trunk. Nice, for metas this time. Naruto whistled in amazement as he watched Satoji jump back on his feet without any noticeable injuries on his body. The devil in training had a rather large attraction to his queen. Maybe it was love or perhaps lust, he did not know, but seeing Hilda so furious over another devil was amusing to no end. You truly have grown stronger, Lady Hildegard. Reinhard complimented, smiling at the display of strength. Now, what do we have here? Satoji asked as he approached Tatsumi, studying the boy's every move with a curious expression. A new member of my peerage. He is very talented. Nodding his head in acceptance, the self-proclaimed familiar master took a step back and spoke. I have to warn you that there have been sightings of a dangerous familiar responsible for a great deal of craters and explosions around the forest. It appeared a week or so ago, but there has been no sightings of the familiar anymore. Possibly a dragon. Marching forward, Satoji led the group deeper into the forest as he pointed at a variety of familiars as they passed by, nothing catching Tatsumi's attention whatsoever. As the man showed them the smaller creatures that were not capable of fighting, merely used for basic tasks assigned to familiars, the young pawn had a desire for something that could help in a fight, though at the rate they were going it might take him all night just to find a familiar that could help him. Nevertheless, with Naruto pushing them forward, he had a sliver of hope they would find a familiar just right for him, hopefully. His thoughts were halted when he witnessed a series of craters around the artificial clearing of the forest. Did that creature you were talking about cause this, Satoji-san? Tatsumi asked in surprise of the destruction laid out before him. Yup, we don't have any idea what kind it is, but only some of the more powerful ones can do this amount of damage. Satoji replied with a shrug on his shoulders before continuing on their tour around the forest. Hilda? Naruto whispered as he turned his head toward the small rustle from the bushes, flaring his magic in turn. Drawing her blade, Hilda turned to the bushes and began walking slowly. Reinhard took his place by Naruto's side with a hand on his blade. Tatsumi frowning somewhat, he was about to talk when the creature hidden in the bushes jumped out with a wooden staff in hand. Dressed as a wizard, the creature quickly turned her staff on Naruto, but Hilda was faster. Gripping the staff, she twisted it and pulled it out of the girl's hands and tossed it back to Naruto, who caught it with a raised brow. Reinhard brandished his other blade and approached her, still cautious about her, ready to strike her any time she tried to attack Naruto or anyone in the peerage. Naruto-san, are you okay? Tatsumi asked as he had his sacred gear out, eyeing the girl suspiciously. I'm fine, Tatsumi. Hilda, don't glare at her like that, she's just a girl. Naruto said as he approached her, studying the dirt-ridden robes, holding his hands up as a sign of peace. What's your name? Archwizard Megumin Devil, what's yours? The wizard said as she winced a little at Hilda's still brandished blade aimed at her neck, ready to take her life. Don't worry, I'm pretty sure Hilda won't kill you. Naruto replied as Reinhard took a step back. Now can you tell me why you're in the familiar forest only allowed for high-class devils and their peerage? Well, you see, I got lost when I was looking for Lucifat. I'm from Golden Dawn, and I was hoping to make a pact with the devil. Raising his brow once more, Naruto pondered the idea as he beckoned around the explosions. Did you cause that? Some creatures tried attacking me, but I attacked them with my explosion magic and passed out afterwards. Megumin replied offhandedly, keeping the information of her passing out after one spell a secret for now. Lysafad is in the west. You can teleport there, it's pretty close from here. Reinhard said, pointing his finger to the west. Heh, well you see I can't exactly teleport. Megumin replied as an awkward silence filled the air. You can't be serious. I thought you were an arch-wizard. Hilda said, a deadpan expression bearing down on Megumin, making the young girl extremely nervous at the sight of the bewitching beauty. Naruto simply gave her a wince of sympathy. Not many people could hold their own against her gaze. Astaroth, how could she be an arch-wizard if she can't even teleport? Lady Hilda raises a fair point, Lady Megumin. Reinhard continued as his suspicions were raised. Replacing his hold towards his blade, the powerful knight waited patiently for her to explain herself. No need to act without Naruto's permission. Back off, maid. The only true form of magic is explosive magic. I don't bother with other forms of magic, they are not good enough. Megumin replied, waving off the suspicion as she puffed her chest out in pride. The path of explosions is the only one I will walk towards. No other magic will match it. This little girl really is something else. What a freak. Tatsumi drawled before Megumin smacked him across his head with her long staff. I will blow you. That's enough, you two. Naruto said, planting his hands on their heads and forcefully separating them with little effort before Reinhard stepped in between the two, ready to take action. If you can't teleport them, you could accompany us while we find Tatsumi a familiar. Once that happens, I will take you to Lysafad. Does that sound alright with you? Perking up at the offer, Megumin smiled at Naruto as the group proceeded forward, occasionally picking fights with Tatsumi and threatening to blow him up, the usual. With Zatoji guiding them deeper into the forest, a list of familiars were available, but Tatsumi did not like any of them, and the search continued. Though Naruto saw Hilda was losing her patience with the two continuously arguing for the sake of their survival, he needed to speed up their little hike before her temper exploded. Megumin, how about I take you to Lysafad right now and Hilda can help Tatsumi find a familiar? Naruto offered as he caught the group's attention. Their conversation, however, was cut short when a loud roar filled the night, and a large beast appeared, growling menacing at the Astaroth peerage, murderous rage in its eyes. It's the 9-headed Hydra. Zatoji whimpered as he jumped high on a tree branch, avoiding the beast with fearful eyes. As a soon-to-be familiar master, he could not be counted as the most courageous of devils. Fighting was simply not among the job requirements of a familiar master. No need to get himself killed before he actually became one. How about this one, Tatsumi? It looks dangerous enough. Naruto asked almost cheerfully at the beast's sudden arrival, receiving a polite smile from Reinhard and a deadpan stare from Hilda. It is one of the most dangerous beasts in the familiar forest. Its poison is very dangerous. Zatoji shouted, get out of there. I suppose you're right, Mom would never let you keep it. The blonde muttered offhandedly, as the Hydra charged, aiming its heads directly at Naruto, hoping to kill the devil. Much to the beast's dismay, Naruto struck the leading head with one punch, sending it flying through a sea of trees, crushing the skull upon impact. Did I kill it? Roaring in a newfound anger, the Hydra regained its bearings and charged, this time poison escaping its fangs as the mighty monster of mythology found one of its many necks sliced by Reinhard. Chuckling somewhat, Naruto jumped into the air, wrestling a neck down, and blasted the captured head with magic. As Tatsumi brandished his sacred gear, the young man held off another head, grunting somewhat at the powerful fangs. Megumin took charge as her eyes sparkled in anticipation. Using her staff to prepare an explosion spell, she casted the destructive move, blasting the beast back before collapsing on the ground. Good work there, Megumin. Naruto replied cheerfully before staring awkwardly at the unconscious Megumin. About time you woke up, Tatsumi said as he watched the drowsy girl groan a little before returning to her food. What Tatsumi did not account for was Megumin reaching for her staff and quickly casting a spell directly at him. Ducking under the bed, the pawn yelped fearfully as the table he sat on exploded into shards of wood. The hell was that for you, crazy girl? You pervert! Were you taking advantage of me while I was asleep? Megumin shouted, pointing an accusing finger at him as she had her staff on one hand and covering her body with